Hey, y'all, gravity, any day above ground living. I hope you're having a fantastic start to your Tuesday. Before we start this, I just want to say thank you to those who have been around with the channel for years now. Those that just found it today. Because I don't warn you, there's going to be a lot of stuff said in here today, but I just want to put that out there. This interview was over 2 hours long. It's going to be a lot. So thankfully, you'll stick with it and, we'll have fun. So let's get into this. Candace Owens sat down with Nick Fuentes finally, the frog face idiots. They finally got their 15 minutes of fame. This fool got to go to Nashville and sit down with this chick. He's probably going to move down there now. And yeah, a lot of comments and commentaries already did this, but we break everything down to its minute details. And we already know the frog face idiots are going to be in here. So just be on alert. The Candace Owens lovers are going to be in here. Let's just be on alert. Let them talk. Let them talk. Unless they're being overly egregious, let them talk. We got to show them how dumb each side is. But let's begin. And by the way, we're not watching this on YouTube. We're going to watch this because I downloaded it. So nobody's going to get any free views off of the Kid Gravity Beyond YouTube channel.
Nick, welcome to the Candace Show.
Great to be with you.
You talk a lot of
I do.
You absolutely talk a lot about me included. So I wanted to invite you onto the podcast because a lot of your videos have been going viral. Obviously, it will not surprise you to learn that, according to the media, you might be the most evil person in the world.
They say that about me, yes. That's my reputation.
And definitely anti-Semitic, racist, misogynist. There have been real fears of people speaking about your Groyper movement. So I did something before this interview was I went back into my phone and wrote Nick Fuentes. I wanted to try to remember the first time that I actually heard your name. And it was in 2019, a text message that somebody had shared with me that Ashley St. Clair had been kind of fired from Turning Point USA. And this person was...
I love how they always hang around these losers, but, We're in a podcast setting with Catholic memorabilia in the back. You're talking to this loser. Oh, wow. Candace, you going out sad, baby girl. You going out very sad. But I understand it. I understand it. This is what your life has descended into. And this is why your father-in-law gave you the business. But, we're cool with it.
Speaking about Ashley St. Clair, and had mentioned that she got in trouble a while back or whenever it happened because she took a photo with you and that you were this big anti-Semite. And then later that year I had a conversation about the Groypers. It was something that I had never seen before, who were showing up on college campuses and asking questions about conservatism to various speakers, whether it was Rob Smith, Dave Rubin, and asking, hey, if we're conservatives, why are we promoting gay people?
Because Rob Smith is a tool. And we're in the age of the Griff ending. So it's amazing after 6 years, he went from Turning Point USA to now speaking like a Black American. I just found that funny. But again, the Griff is over, which this channel has predicted since 2023 that the Griff was over on November 5th, 2024. Everybody's in rebrand mode now.
Right.
You're the person that is the face of that movement. So
Yes.
can you just tell me, I guess, a little bit about Nick Fuentes before the Breaker movement?
Sure. Well, yeah, that was my big claim to fame. That was kind of when I came on the map in 2019. But before that, I was at RSBN, Right Side Broadcasting Network. I was a freshman in college. I was 18 years old. I was at Boston University, and I was a big pro-Trump guy. And I was very into politics, extremely political. But like a lot of people, I was pretty mainstream. I was very pro-Israel, libertarian, big PragerU viewer, Ben Shapiro fan, all that kind of stuff. But of course, in 2016, everything changed. You had the rise of the alternative right. And so it's guys like Jordan Peterson and Stefan Molyneux and Richard Spencer and Jared Taylor. And of course, Trump being the king of them all. So in 2016, everything changed. I became very racialist, very pro-white, very critical of Israel.
Right. The admitted half Mexican is pro-white. Oh, you gotta love it. But remember, he was one of the voices that got upset when old boy down in Texas did that mass shooting in Allen and identified as white and a white supremacist. He was one of them that got upset that he did that because he was brown skinned. But now you want to hide the fact that you're still hiding it, by the way, that you're half Hispanic. They wouldn't accept you. The real whites, the purebreds, they wouldn't accept you. They think your mama was selling mangoes on the corner and your dad just happened to pass by. They would look at you as the love child of the maid. But you want to be white. Okay.
Very aware of the Jewish phenomenon that's happening in the country. And so I went to the college campus. I was freshman, 18, and I did a big debate with the student body president at the school. And it was kind of weird how it came together. I was pretty vocal on Twitter, didn't have a big following, maybe 200 followers, but I was wearing a MAGA hat everywhere I went. Cafeteria, to class, down the street. And I became known on the campus as that guy wearing the MAGA hat. And I would go on Twitter and I'd talk about my experience. People are picking on me. People are saying they were going to beat me up.
Aww. And that's translated into his adult life, post-college.
Or threatening me, stuff like that. And I said, I was defiant. I was very pro-Trump in spite of all that.
You weren't defiant with
And
that
so I got a
crossbow.
lot of flack from the liberals on the campus, the Democrats, and one of these groups, Young Americans for Liberty, they came in and contacted me and said, would you want to set up a debate on the campus with one of your detractors? One of the people is threatening you, trying to fight you. I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. I had been a broadcaster in high school, so I said, yeah, let's set something up. And so they put out like an open casting call. They contacted a bunch of the people that had been talking trash about me.
Did you hear what he just said? We're gonna go back. He think he's slick. He just glossed over that.
Do you want to set up a debate on the campus with one of your detractors, one of the people that's threatening you, trying to fight you? And I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. I had been a broadcaster in high school, so I said, yeah, let's set something up. And so they put out like an open casting call.
Casting call. So let me get this right. You just said that they knew who was threatening you. They knew. They knew the names. They knew who these people looked like. They had to set up a casting call. A casting call. Got it.
They contacted a bunch of the people that had been talking trash about me, and they said they'd like to set up this debate, and they found the student body president. He was like a senior, and he was like some Democrat socialist or something, and I didn't even know the guy. But they set up this live event, and like 300 students came to it. It was like a big deal. And actually, someone Cassie Dillon, who's now known as Cassie Akiva, at that time she was a fellow at Daily Wire. She was like I guess she was working there temporarily. They had taken her to Israel. She had been there a few times, and she was studying at Mount Holyoke in Western Massachusetts. And she was involved with some of the campus groups, so she went to the event. And she live streamed it on Periscope at that time. And I didn't even know her. I had heard about her. I had seen her on Twitter. And when the debate finished, she came up to me and she said, "Oh my gosh, I just streamed that. You had 30,000 people watching." She goes, "Ben Shapiro watched it. Milo Yiannopoulos watched it." She said, "And you've got a bunch of different job offers." And we do a little post-game interview. She's asking me questions. And the last question she asked me, which is like the big setup for my whole life, she said, "I just got back from Israel." She said, "Would you ever take a trip to Israel? Because I think you'd love it," and so on. And, I sort of knew what was happening with Israel, but not 100%. And I said, "Yeah." I said, "It sounds interesting, but I think I have everything I need right here in America." And she goes, "Oh, okay." She wraps up the interview, and she gives me her card. We exchange information. I get involved with her. She was involved with RSBN.
And you didn't even take an attempt to go get her. Okay, Nick. All right.
And if you know, that's Right Side Broadcasting Network. They did all the Trump rallies during the election. And when the election ended, they said they were going to start up a bunch of original programming. They had Mike Cernovich, Bill Mitchell, a bunch of these guys that were on Twitter. And she had a show. It was called Raise Right. And so she contacted Joe Seals, who's at RSBN, and she said, "I saw this guy give the speech. He's really great. He debated this guy on campus. We should give this guy a show." And so I got in touch with them. We got to talking. This was around the end of 2016, beginning of 2017. They said, "What do you want to call your show?" I said, "Well, let's call it the Nicholas J. Fuentes Show." They said, "That's too long. Nobody knows who you are. We don't want that." I said, "Okay." They said, "You need a different name." I said, "All right." So I watched the Trump inauguration, which was January 17, and he said in the speech, "A new vision will govern our land. It's going to be only America first." And I said, "I don't like the sound of that." I said, "We'll call it America First."
So question, how old are you exactly at this time?
I was 18.
18. Okay, so all of this sort of happened 17, 18 years old, or this all happened very quickly at the age of 18?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and it all happened rapidly, and this was a time when I was still even figuring out what I'm about, because I'm a teenager. And
a loser. But okay. Now I just want y'all to understand he's right now, within the first 6.5 minutes of this interview, explained the grift. And I know his audience, those frog-faced idiots, didn't pick up on this. They're following a grifter. Man literally said, "I'm pro-Israel. I was heavy into politics." So if you were pro-Israel and heavy into politics, how did you side with Israel, number one? And number two, if you're American, why would you involve yourself in Israeli Middle East politics and not realize that both sides have problems with each other and both sides are not in the best interests of America? But you wanted to call your show America First. Got it. Again, he's explaining the grift, and his frog-faced idiot fan base didn't pick up on it. The definition of a cult.
I've been extremely political since I was like 12 years old. I read Thomas Sowell, Milton Friedman.
There we go. There we go. How is he no better than C.J. Pearson getting trucked outside when he was 12? How is he no different than Noah DeBrasso getting trucked outside while he's 13? If you don't think these two sides, these two ideological spectrums don't prey on kids, but they want to worry about an Epstein list, you need your head examined. Why are you having 12, 13, 14-year-olds going in front of cameras talking about politics? They need to be talking about algebra. And again, if you were in politics at 12, let's see, he's about 25 now. So he was born in 2000. Sir, Israel and the Middle East were popping off each other during Obama's administration. How did you not see the play? You literally had a war. When he was 18 and in college, they popped off on each other. That was 2018. How did you not see that both of them were wrong? Huh. Okay. It took a debate and you in front of people to realize that there's money in grifting. Because he didn't change out of the goodness of his heart or doing research. He did that after a debate. Yeah, he's so brilliant, right? GI, he's so brilliant. Y'all say he defeated Candace Owens, and y'all literally say Candace Owens is stupid. Okay. I like how y'all say this man is smart and he should be president when he goes after people that are low IQ. Okay. Sure.
All that stuff, all the libertarian, conservative
He actually
stuff,
wouldn't.
even a lot of the neocon stuff. honestly.
GIK, he actually wouldn't. He just proved that he knows nothing about the Middle East. He wouldn't touch me. Because the second I start hitting him with facts, he's going to start talking about white people. I've seen him debate before. He likes to move the goalposts when he can't figure out an answer.
I was kind of all over the place, and I started to get red pilled. You know, I started to go on 4chan, I started to go on far right Twitter, I started to get into some of the interesting ideas, and I wasn't sold yet. That's sort of the thing, is I was sort of in this questioning phase.
Oh God!
Not sort of innuendo,
Far
but
right
questioning
Twitter.
my political ideology, like
4chan.
you know, I had these libertarian priors, and I
Oh,
had this
God.
pro-Israel bent, because that's just what there was on the internet at that time.
Oh
All of
God!
the online content, it was PJ Media, which was Shapiro and Bill Whittle and Andrew Clavin. It was Big Review, Breitbart. That's what there was. But then in 2016, you had this alt-right movement.
Hey, sir, MAGA don't fuck with him. We got to put that out there. MAGA don't fuck with him. Remember, all them times they said Trump need to go talk to Fuentes. Did you see a whole bunch of MAGA people say, yeah, let's let that happen? Hell no. Charlie Kirk shut that down. Marjorie Taylor Greene told him no. GIK, Candace is a racist. She already admitted it. But, you know, I know y'all don't listen to these people all the time. Or when they do talk, you don't pick shit up. She already admitted that she was a racist. But, okay. She took money to be racist. I'll help you since you want to type in all caps. This is the same chick who went on Twitter months ago and said that her working at Daily Wire, they didn't like the fact that she was talking about Israel all the time. That's why she got fired. But when she was talking about black people, it was encouraged for her to go do it. They wanted her to do it. That's where the money came in. That's where the envy came in. That's where the opportunities came in. She took money to be racist. Yeah. But I know you're going to tell me that's not being racist. Okay.
And suddenly you had all these other people that
exactly.
were in the
Thank you for proving my
conversation. Like I
point.
said, these guys
That's
like
my
Jared
point.
Taylor and Sam Francis and a whole other crew. And so I really was open-minded and questioning what I really believe. And so that's really when I came into conflict with.
Right. She was doing her job.
You know, something
Okay.
that I sort of
that makes it
began
better.
to figure it out and started to pay the price for this line of inquiry. And so that first conversation I had with Cassie Dillon, it prefigured kind of like my entire adult life until this point. And at that time,
good. So good. So
advent,
since that was her job, when the news starts cracking on white people like they usually do, don't complain about it. Just tell me that they were doing their job.
I was doing some digging on the Israel situation, and there were some notable news stories with Obama and then with Trump that made me ask some questions. You know, in December of 2016, during the lame duck, Obama declined
Sure.
to veto in the Security Council a resolution condemning the settlements in the
Got
West
nothing
Bank.
else to say beyond
And
that, huh?
everybody called him a Jew hater for doing that. They said he was an anti-Semite. And I said, well, wait a second. And I was a big conservative. I didn't like Obama. But I said, wait a second. I said, it is the official policy of the United States since 1967 that we're against the civilian settlements. Every president, Republican and Democrat. I said, and all Obama did, he didn't even vote no. He didn't veto it. He didn't vote in favor. They voted present, and they allowed the resolution to pass.
Right.
I said, that's consistent with our government's policy, the American policy. Obviously, Israel and America don't have the same policy on everything. I said, but now you have Fox News and Mark Levin and all the usual suspects are saying he's an anti-Semite and a Jew hater because he merely advanced our own position. I said, isn't that a bit of a double standard? Isn't that
Sir, I've already read Thomas Sowell, and his theories are antiquated. His theories are better built for the 70s and 80s. They're not built for the modern economies, which is why nobody cites him when they talk about the economy. They only bring him outside to talk about black people. And coincidentally, he came back outside a few months ago and said that Trump's tariff policy was bullshit, and MAGA turned on him. See, unlike you, Mr. or Mrs., we don't discriminate over here. We read things that people may not think that we do. I got into a whole discussion when I did a Thomas Sowell live stream with someone about that man, and I listed 8 things that he was wrong on, and the motherfucker couldn't come back on me with anything. Funny how that works. But keep going. Give me more.
hypocritical? I said, and you know what it sounds like? It sounds like the left. You disagree with the left on race, and they say you're a racist.
I just gave you one. See, now you're not listening. I just gave you one. Now you can rewind the video and listen.
You disagree with the left on Islam, you're an Islamophobe, and all the rest of it. And so that was something that really set off an alarm bell. I said, something's not right here. And I wrote a big article about it on my blog. A couple months later, guess who comes to town for Trump's first visit from a foreign leader? It's Bibi Netanyahu. That was the first foreign leader that he hosted at the White House. And Netanyahu goes up there, they do a joint press conference, and Trump turns to him and says, I need you to take it easy on those civilian settlements in the West Bank, because it's a big liability for us. Netanyahu goes home and authorizes the largest expansion.
Who the fuck is we need to raise white consciousness? So y'all telling us that y'all are weak? Thank you for admitting that. You're weak. You let the brown skins run roughshod over you, and you have no idea how to do it. You have no idea how to fight back. Thank you for admitting white people are weak. We need that.
Expansion of the settlements in Israel's history.
Wait, that's super interesting. Is that on camera?
Yes.
And secondly, on the settlement issue, are you both on the same page?
As far as settlements, I'd like to see you hold back on settlements for a little bit. We'll work something out, but I would like to see a deal be made. I think a deal will be made. Bibi and I have known each other a long time. Smart man, great negotiator, and I think we're going to make a deal. It might be a bigger and better deal than people in this room even understand. That's a possibility. So let's see what we do. Doesn't sound too optimistic, but that's good negotiator.
It's the art of the deal.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's pretty obscure because, you know, if you're not watching this stuff day by day, it kind of slips through the cracks. But that was the first foreign visit. I remember it very distinctly. And so I said to Cassie Dillon,
So you're just more dialed into it at this time because I was paying attention to politics. Definitely, obviously.
Now it's the worst chat ever because he's getting cooked. And you wonder why I said white people are weak. Well, I shouldn't say that. Your type of white people, people that think like you, are weak.
Because I was kind of getting kicked over the BLM stuff, but I would have never tuned into that because we weren't really confronted with the alliance as much in 2016. But you're kind of dialed in and you notice this moment, and BB just kind of does F you to Trump and proliferates it further.
Right, exactly. And I was paying attention because I was really big into foreign affairs. I was a big Model UN kid in high school. That was like my thing. So I was really focused on all that. And I just pay attention. I ask questions. I noticed the pattern, so to speak. And so at that point, I became friends with all the Daily Wire people. There was Cassie Dillon, this writer named Elliot Hamilton, a writer named Aaron Bandler. Those guys were Jewish, and I think they visited Israel a lot. They were involved in Jewish groups. I thought they were my friends, and they were talking.
Here we go.
They were setting me up with a writing gig at Daily Wire. They basically did like a preliminary.
Here we go.
A lot.
Listen.
In Jewish groups. I thought they were my friends, and they were talking about. They were setting me up with a writing gig at Daily Wire.
The second part of the grift, you get in bed with people that you don't even know, and you did no vetting. In the age of technology and information being at your fingertips, you did not research these people. You saw them coming a mile away, offer you an opportunity, and you didn't even think, you know what? Since I've been in politics and following politics, we know that there's always backhanded deals. Let me research these Daily Wire idiots. Let me do that. Let me research RSBN. If they're not aligned with me, I probably shouldn't take it. Nah, he figured I was going to go on an upward trajectory and my life would be set. And look where he's now.
Basically did like a preliminary interview. They wanted me to work over there. And I did a lot of collaborations with them. I gave them interviews for articles because I was like a campus teen that was pro-Trump and all that. It was big fodder at that time for the culture war stuff. And then I started asking them. I said, why does the United States give Israel $3.8 billion per year? Because at that point, the new MOU had just passed, the new Memorandum of Understanding. That's the foreign aid for Israel. And they actually increased it. And they expanded it for 10 years. So I said, why are they the number one recipient of foreign aid? I said, they're not a poor country. And I don't even really know what the strategic value is there. I said, so why, since 1978, uninterrupted, have they been number one? And number two and number three, it's the same story. It's Egypt and Jordan. They're the second and third biggest recipients. And we basically pay them because they normalized relations with Israel. It's like a bribe. I said, so, what do you make of this whole arrangement? I said, is it because they are our closest ally and I'm missing something? I said, or are we being lobbied? And there's this deep contradiction and double standard, and it's obviously being enforced by foreign influence and money. And I remember they hated the line of questioning.
And so when you say they, you're referring to this friend group?
Yes, this Daily Wire friend group. They were all writers there, and you could still find their articles online. And they, at first it was sort of playful. They said, oh, haha, very good. They almost thought I was joking. They said, oh, it's very funny, but you really shouldn't ask that, they would say. They'd say, there's a good answer for all those questions. They'd say, but the way you're asking it is anti-Semitic. They said, and, we're happy to talk.
The third part of the grift, getting into these group chats and everybody collaborating to sound like independent voices, but on one accord. Now, Amazing Lucas has exposed this. Now he's exposing it. One on the left, one on the right. They all get together in these group chats. They're like, okay, we're going to put out this article on Israel being the victim again. But I need you to post yours at 4 o'clock because I'm going to post mine at 12. Okay, Nick, you post yours at 7. That way we don't look like we collaborated on this. Same thing with videos. They do the same thing. So there you go. The conservatives were doing it. The liberals do it. They're both in cults. Well, let's continue.
With you one-on-one in person, like they're going to teach me how to ask a question. They said, because the way you're saying it, it sounds hateful and it's wrong. I said, I'm asking a question. It's free marketplace of ideas, I thought. So I kept pushing and pushing, and I I was tugging on a lot of these different threads. I was also asking about World War II and about some of the narratives there, and I was asking about 9/11 and the Iraq War.
And where are you asking this? Are you in a group chat? Are you just face to face, like with your friends eating a burger? Like when you say I keep asking these questions, what's the setup for that?
We're texting in group chats, and we're even doing it one-on-one. One of the venues, we had a big Christmas party out in Western Massachusetts, and Cassie Dillon invites me back to her apartment with a couple of friends, and everyone's drinking wine. I don't drink, so I wasn't drinking, but we're playing apples to apples, and it's a party atmosphere. We're friends, we're having fun, we're political, we're talking about it, and this is the venue, and it just got increasingly cold over time, and it eventually turned into stop. Like, you need to stop asking or else. And eventually, I kept pushing on a lot of these different things, and Cassie hits me up on Twitter, and she texts me this huge block text paragraph, and she says, we're not in the same movement anymore. She goes, I don't really recognize what you're about and your views. She says, I'm pro-Israel. She goes, and the things you're asking, the things you're saying about Ben Shapiro and other people, she goes, I'm just not a part of that movement. And she said, so we can't be friends anymore. So she stops talking.
Part 4 of the grift. You dare not think that you are independent ever. Now, Nick is a follower. We already know this. He fell for the Kool-Aid. Now, because he got access, he want to ask questions. They don't like him no more. See, this is what happens when you don't vet. You could have easily went on Daily Wire's website and saw what they were about and said, I kind of don't want to be part of this, but I'll contribute whenever I need to. You took the money. You ended up in people's homes. Yeah.
He cuts me off completely. All the other people block me. Elliot, Aaron, there are some other people involved. They all block me on Twitter, complete ghosting. And I'm shocked. I'm floored. This is my first encounter with this kind of pushback, because you go into it as an 18-year-old in college, and you get involved in these groups. I was involved in the Trump campaign, YAL, all these groups, and you think this is the free marketplace. We're here to debate ideas. It's a free speech atmosphere. And I'm also thinking we're all pro-Trump. And that's another big dimension of this, is me. Trump was a huge influence on me. He made me a nationalist when I was a conservative. And America first was that operative phrase. I wasn't any longer.
So according to Nick now, Trump made him a racist. So he went from a plausible racist to a confirmed racist. I see why David Duke likes him. I see it now.
Small government, constitutional individualist. I said, I'm America first. I'm about America. And so there's this deep contradiction on the Trump strain in particular and what they're pushing. And I said, it really shouldn't be there. If we're America first on China, Mexico, Russia, everybody else, NATO, why aren't we America first on Israel? So this was deeply disconcerting and weird and disturbing to me. And I was honestly just taken aback. I was like, why are my friends now turning their back on me because of a disagreement? Well, fast forward. I'm doing my show on RSBN. This is in my second semester, so this is winter and spring 2017. And I'm doing the show. The show's going okay. I'm not getting great viewership. Nobody was. And I get a call from my boss, Joe Seals, who runs RSBN. And he goes, you got to keep this between us. He says, but did something happen between you and Cassie? Because she's still doing her show too. I said, yeah, we had this falling out, blah, blah, blah. He goes, she's been calling me every day for the past 2 weeks. He goes, and she's telling me, well, Nick said this on his show. Isn't that so racist? Nick said this on his show. Isn't that so hateful? That's not conservative. He says, and she's been trying to get you fired, calling me literally every day for 2 weeks. I said, wow. I said, I can't say I'm surprised. I said, she gave me this very cold, standoffish thing. You know, she blocked me, all the rest. He goes, not only that, he's a pastor. He says, she's talking to me about converting to Judaism, which of course she now has. You know, fast forward all this time later, about a year ago, she marries some Israeli guy and she converts to Judaism. But he goes, you know, I'm a Christian. He's an evangelical pastor. He says, and I'm trying to talk her in off the ledge. I don't know what's gotten into her, all this. And so this was how my college career began. That's sort of what created me. And then for the next 3, 4, 5 months, my life turned upside down, where it was these people like Cassie, this guy Cabot Phillips. I think he was a Campus Reform. I think he might be a Daily Wire now. His father, Tim Phillips, ran this big nonprofit, Americans for Prosperity. He's friends with Morton Blackwell from Leadership Institute. This guy was coming at me. He was on me all the time on Twitter. And these people were...
Pause. Oh, man. I couldn't let that one pass.
Just pushing this line. Nick Fuentes is alt-right. He's a white nationalist. He's a Jew hater. He's an anti-Semite. And, you know, me at that time as an 18-year-old guy, I'm thinking I'm just asking questions, you know. I'm just doing what we're supposed to do. It's free speech. I'm America first, the rest of it. And then the first big hit piece was actually written about me by Media Matters. Come to find out, Media Matters sourced the material from Cassie Dillon. She sent one of my clips. And I'll admit, you know, it wasn't the finest clip. I stand by it, but it was, you know, the way that I said it was sort of unfortunate. But she took a clip from my show, she sent it to Media Matters, and they did this big hit piece about me. And then I had the left breathing down my neck, Right Wing Watch, Media Matters, all the rest of them. And this was kind of like the launch of my career. They were trying to throttle me in the crib.
Just how do you know that Cassie sent the clip to Media Matters?
This was told to me by Joe Seals.
Okay, got it. So she was sending around clips from your show.
Right, and that's their move. That's what they do, you know, as you know. And the show wasn't even big. I had like 100 live viewers.
Ma'am. What do you mean she knows what they do? Sir, she just says this shit. She stupidly puts it on her own page. It ain't the left doing it. Hell, the right has gotten on her for some shit that she said. But, all right. By the way, Nick, since you're into politics and you obviously missed this, you do know it was the right that canceled Candace Owens, not the left. She figured out the grift. Number 6, if it don't work where you grifted to, you grift back. She's trying to grift back to the left. But again, you conservative idiots don't see this. That's why she's falling out with everybody. They see the grift. Ben Shapiro is not going to debate her until she fully confirms being back on the left. All right.
I would get 1,000 views per episode, but they were on top of this. And even Ben Shapiro, you know, he quote tweeted one of my tweets and said, you know, because I said something to the effect of, if you're Mexico first, live in Mexico. If you're China first, live in China. If you're Israel first, live in Israel. And he quote tweets me on Christmas Eve and says, well, that's the surest sign you're an anti-Semite, is to accuse a Jew of dual loyalty. And I'm sitting there like, it's true. You know, you do have dual loyalty. You're going to sit there and say you don't? So this was like it's maddening. You know, it literally will drive you crazy because by definition it's gaslighting. Because you see it, if you're a logical person, it's obvious. And, you know, this is something that maybe is helpful to explain my mindset. I'm waiting for someone to prove me wrong. I'm pushing on all these narratives, the foreign aid, the Iraq war, all of it. And I'm waiting for someone to tell me, here's all the evidence, the obvious evidence that it isn't all just a big thing. It's a conspiracy. And I'm asking in good faith, where is that evidence?
Oh, my God.
Cassie, my friend.
Sir, you're saying nothing right now. We all figured out the Iraq War was a grift. We all figured that out. We all figured out 9/11. Sir, you were running around in kindergarten when we figured it out. Oh my God. He's really trying to sit up here, Tabernacle, and act like he on this higher level of thinking. If they're not asking the question, sir, you should excuse me, you should be responsible enough to go educate your audience. You don't do that. You sit there and do bitch ass reaction content and rants. What are you teaching? Oh, that's right. You're teaching people how not to end your show with transsexual porn playing in the background. That's right. Because you haven't done it since. So shout out to you.
And all the rest of them. And instead of getting an answer, I'm getting blocked, I'm getting tattled on, I'm getting clipped out of context, they're selling me out to the left, I'm getting called names. And, from the very start, this made me extremely cynical and resentful and furious about the whole thing. And I said, I'm like at war now with the whole conservative establishment, and the same opportunities for advancement that other people are getting. They get their spot on Fox News, or they get to run a Turning Point chapter.
Here we go.
I'm now being closed off the advancement that other people feel and resentful.
Part of the grift, part 7. Get pissed off that you're not getting the opportunities that others are. He just said it.
And furious about the whole thing. And I said, I'm like at war now with the whole conservative establishment, and the same opportunities for advancement that other people are getting. They get their spot on Fox News, or they get to run a Turning Point chapter. You name it.
What have I said multiple times in regards to people like him who sit there and claim that they're America first and they want to fix the country? Then we kind of find out they just want to be what?
I'm now being closed off because there's this smear campaign now going on behind the scenes of powerful, connected people at Daily Wire, a whisper campaign telling everybody this guy's an anti-Semite. And this went on really for many years, goes on.
They don't want to save the country. They just want to be celebrities. He wants to be on TV. He thought RSBN and Daily Wire were going to be a springboard to Fox News. He would have his own show on Fox News as a young 22-year-old bull. He wanted to start from the contributor, write some articles, and get on Sean Hannity's show, Tucker when he was there. He eventually gets up to Fox and Friends. Then they think, okay, he's so good and he's young, we can keep him in a contract for about 20 years until we have to get rid of him for saying something stupid. We'll put him on contract. Give him his own show. Even if it's on the offshoot. That way he can say there was no competition, he's getting all the views, and then he could run outside and say Fox News is underpaying me because I'm the one that's driving the network, not everybody else. And then they'd have to fire him. He just admitted that that was his whole plan. And it didn't work. Now he's mad.
On until this day. But that was sort of my origin story. That's how I got started.
Okay, so you were 18 years old when that happened.
And now he's trying to be a villain.
26.
Okay, so that was a long time ago.
Yes.
And since then, would you say
Fine, he was born in
that
99,
period
whatever.
of being rejected when you were literally just asking questions from people who were your friends and then kind of sold down the river, did that then make you go, okay, no, actually, I do hate Jews because of what you're doing to me? I'm now responding, and my response is, I hate you all.
No, I never said I hated all Jews, and I've always had Jewish friends. You know, Laura Loomer actually used to be a friend of mine.
There we go.
Back in.
Don't that sound like he was like, hey, I got that one black friend? No, I have Jewish friends. Here we go. Lauren Loomer used to be my friend.
2018, we did a show together in June 2018.
That makes you a
I had
friend.
a Jewish assistant at one point in 2019 after the Groiper War. I'm a Catholic. I've always been a Catholic. I'm a cradle Catholic. So I've never hated anybody. You know, I do have some statements and some controversial views, but I never said they're attacking me. Now I hate them all. I never took it that far. But what it did do is it demonstrated that, you know, where there's smoke, there's fire. Mm-hmm. Clearly, if you're pushing on something and you get that hard of a pushback, I'm thinking, I'm not a big deal. I'm an 18-year-old kid. I don't have a big show. What do people care what I have to say? If I'm pushing on this and I'm getting forceful response from these institutions, Campus Reform, Daily Wire, the rest of it, I'm thinking something must be up. So what I did is I just kept pursuing that line of inquiry and saying, well, you know, if this is what they don't want us to talk about, this is what we should be talking about. Obviously, there's something they're hiding there. And this led, what I would describe it as is like an 8-year inquiry. You know, I've been digging into this subject for 8 years, and it's sort of a difficult subject because since it is so taboo and since it is so censored, there's like this late.
Jake, oh no, they don't. Not all the time. Usually with podcasts, they usually just want to talk off the hip. Like the person that's going to be asking the questions know what they want to ask. They're just trying to ask it in a way that they can get clippable moments.
Deception, where the first layer is they make it so that you don't even want to think about it. No one wants to be thinking about the Jews, you know, or Israel. And certainly nobody wants to be on the wrong side of that. No one wants to be called an anti-Semite or a Nazi or a Hitler. That's sort of layer one. But layer two, because there's so much censorship, you don't even know where to get the information. If somebody wants to know more about this topic, try Googling it. All the search results are curated. If you go on Wikipedia, the sources are curated. So where do you go next? Well, you have to go to the kooks and the cranks and people that have been canceled.
Or you could just go to DuckDuckGo. There's other places you can get information. See, Google and Wikipedia. Damn. Shit. I don't remember how much.
Because he's anti-war, is sort of for me on the show.
But what raised cradle Catholic, you said?
Yes.
Mom and dad?
Just after October 7th, sources are curated. So where do you go next? Well, you have to go to the kooks and the cranks and people that have been canceled. Some of them have been canceled because there are hateful people in this world that do hate Jews. There are people out there that are schizophrenic. But they're lumped in, censored, and called names and banished from society, just like the real scholars, just like people like Ron Oons, just like people like Michael Collins Piper, you know, people that have investigated this and are intelligent, logical people. And so once you sort of descend into the second layer, you know, the second ring of hell of being an anti-Semite, then you have to parse out the information and discern what's real, what's fake. You know, is it a religious thing? Is it a racial thing? Is it an Israel thing, a nation state thing? And then there's subtleties even beyond that, you know, things I've been getting into on my show for the past few years. The deception is so much more convoluted and nuanced and subtle and ubiquitous than even people think. You know, a lot of people think, and, you know, not to kind of leap right into the topic, but people have a vague notion Israel has too much influence over our government. That's really just the tip of the iceberg. Because then you get into some of these people that have coalesced around Trump in the past couple of years after October 7th. And it's like there's an obvious reason why there's elements in the right. There's almost this form of camouflage they'll do. And one day they're limited government, another day they're white nationalists. You know, guys like Stephen Miller. who will present as very racialist and very nationalistic, very conservative, but yet still extremely loyal to Israel. And you start to say it's not just that Israel influences the government, it's not just there's some vague thing going on. There is this pervasive penetration of our society by a fifth column. And it's so sophisticated and multidimensional and spans many disciplines. It's such a huge topic that you almost...
It's really not. It's literally the 9 areas of human activity. It's really not that convoluted. It's the 9 areas of human activity and money. That's all it is. Whoever controls the money controls the message. You saw that with BLM. You saw that with MAGA. You've seen that with the rise of the influencer class. Whoever controls the money controls the message. You're calling it out now because usually, and I agree with you on this, it was subtle. It's not subtle anymore because they know most of y'all are too weak to do anything about it. I ask again, tell your girl to go debate real black people from the black grassroots. She won't do it. She would get destroyed. Just like you won't go talk to them real ones because you would get destroyed. Meaning she's not black, and you know that. And we're going to prove that he doesn't believe she's black when this is over.
Have to be a little bit insane to tackle it and to get to the bottom of it, which is sort of me going through the looking glass over the past 8 years. So,
All right, so I want to tell you where I agree with you and where I don't agree with you. But first, I just want to ask you, going back to your high school years, because obviously you were very dialed in. You cared about politics. I think you mentioned that you were involved with the UN. What did you say when you were in high school?
Model UN.
Model UN. What's that? What organization is that?
It's like
it's not an organization, you dumb broad.
Okay. But you simulate the United Nations.
So politics was a passion for you.
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned that you're Catholic.
Yes.
Raised cradle Catholic. You said.
Yes.
Mom and dad in the home.
Yes.
Okay, so I think on your show, somebody told me that you mentioned your mom a lot. Were they together, married?
Yes.
Okay, so your parents are still married?
Yes.
So you come from a pretty good home, it sounds like, obviously. So you have a good relationship with your parents. Mm-hmm. And you went to Boston University. Mm-hmm. Everything's going great for you. You kind of should be, like you said, maybe offered a contributorship on Fox News, and your whole life kind of gets derailed.
Right.
Where I'm going to push back on you is to say that you didn't have this anger where you applied it to everyone. Because and I don't have this clip, but I know that recently, and this was after I was fired from the Daily Wire, you kind of went on the attack about me speaking to Dave Smith, right? And saying, actually, I think we do have that clip. Skylar, I think we do have that clip of me speaking to Dave Smith. Do you want to run that clip?
She has nothing to do with me. She wants nothing to do with me. Doesn't do anything with me. No invitation. Won't bring me on the space. Won't bring me on the show. No acknowledgement. Nothing. But she is going to do a show with Dave Smith, Jew, Aiden Ross. You know, and I like Aiden Ross. I've said that before. I like Aiden Ross. But it's like you get canceled and attacked by Jews, and then you go and give it away to all the Jews, really? And finally, Aiden asks her, so what are your thoughts on Nick Fuentes? And she gives this load of PC response. She goes, well, you know, when he was a kid, he got attacked by them, and I understand why he would be angry and why he would be mad about that, but he needs to grow up and figure out what he wants to do. Oh, really? Oh, really? Fangul, Candace. Oh, he needs to figure out what he wants to do. I think you need to figure that out. Talk about accusing other people of that which you are guilty. I think he needs to figure out what he wants to do. I think you need to figure out what you want to do, because you're full of and everyone knows it. You clearly have no idea what you're doing.
No idea what I am doing.
True.
What do you mean?
You didn't invite me on.
Remember what I said when Tommy Sotomayor was getting owned by Richard Spencer and white folk in that Twitter space? And how I changed the title of the live to Tommy Sotomayor, he's still sitting there? You had Skylar go get that clip. He sits there, listens to the clip, laughs at the clip, and then he said that was true, and you still talk to this man for another hour and 43 minutes. Them kind of black folk love being beaten up on. All right.
The show.
But what does that? Just let's first go back to the first layer of what you're talking about. She's speaking of Dave Smith. Yeah. What does that have to do with anything? You call out the fact that I spoke to Dave Smith, that I spoke to Aiden Ross. I didn't speak to them because they were Jewish. I also talked to Piers Morgan. All of these shows following me being fired. So you're just looking at the fact that these two. I didn't even know Aiden Ross was Jewish. I just had a PR agent say, "Do this." I swear I didn't know.
He's visibly Jewish.
Okay, but just so
What the hell? What do you mean visibly Jewish? I didn't know. Okay, never mind. And she's now you see why she put this behind a paywall. By the way, screenshot. Over here looking like Jesse Wu and shit.
Yeah, your PR person comes, here are the shows. Okay, yes. Dave Smith, we had an amazing conversation when I was on the Daily Wire. Mm-hmm. And so your purview here is, okay, well, they're Jewish and she's doing their shows while not saying to your audience she's doing a bunch of other shows too. How is that not you just kind of honing in? Before we get to why you think I'm full of and don't know what I'm doing.
Well, here's the beef, okay? And it's pretty simple. Dave Smith, in my opinion, and I like Dave because I've done a show with Dave too, and I think he's a good guy. I respect him and he's super intelligent. And, he gave me a chance when a lot of people wouldn't. He had me on a show, and he defended me, because he got attacked a lot from the
And that's why you suck, because you get somebody who comes out and defends you, and has you on the show when you're being canceled, and then you throw him under the bus, because, I don't even know what your beef is. It's like, why not just have be totally like, oh yeah, it was cool, we had a conversation, I disagree with him on some points.
Well, here's why. Because I don't think that I should be grateful for being given a chance.
It's not being grateful, it's just being a decent enough human being. Forget gratefulness, you don't owe anybody anything.
Okay.
But the point is you kind of lament the fact that you've been canceled, you lament the fact that you have your platform, and in the very same breath, talk about being a hypocrite, you're going after Dave Smith for what? Like, why is she doing Dave Smith?
I'll tell you. Can I explain why I'm telling you?
Can.
So, my feeling on Dave Smith, and although I like him, is that, look, he is Jewish. He's also libertarian, which means that, when he talks about, for example, the situation in Iran or Israel, he's an anti-war guy. He says, Trump is a war criminal who needs to be impeached. I don't believe in any of that. I don't care that Trump violated international law. I care that he's influenced by a foreign government. He said on another show, he said, Israel's a satellite of the U.S.
What do you mean you don't care that he's influenced? What do you mean you care that he's influenced by a foreign government, but you don't care that he's violating international law? Okay. But he's into politics and doesn't see what the problem is violating international law. Okay. Got it. America's been doing that for decades, centuries, and you don't see the problem with that. The same shit that you sit on your show crying about is literally the result of America violating international law.
We're the empire, and they're our satellite. They're like our aircraft carrier in the Middle East, which is something Joe Biden said, who's an AIPAC man. I think that Dave Smith is somebody who, because he's a paleo-libertarian, like Murray Rothbard, like Ron Paul, like a lot of these guys, he is someone who, because he's anti-war, is sort of forced to confront the Israel lobby. Because if you're anti-war, ideologically, you have to talk about who's driving it, which is the Israel lobby. But he's not a religious Christian. He's a religious Jew, or agnostic or atheist. He's not really a right-wing guy. He's a libertarian.
He's not a religious Jew.
He says that he's proud of being Jewish. He's proud of his ethnicity. He's proud of Judaism.
Should he not be proud that he's he's just born this way?
Well, here's the point, though, is so he's not really 100% aligned with my view. Now, here's why that matters. I think that
It doesn't.
No, it does.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. I'll tell you
It
why.
doesn't. You can't say I want to create people in the image of myself.
No, that's completely ridiculous. I'm criticizing people that I disagree with. And to put it very succinctly, I think that this conversation about Israel has blown up. It's gotten out of their control. Everyone's getting red pilled. They want to control the conversation. And I think that Dave Smith is somebody that, because he's Jewish, because he's libertarian, they have selected him as a convenient spokesperson for it. Because he doesn't really have a problem with Jews and their Jewishness. He doesn't really talk about the whole fifth column aspect of it. He talks about a very narrow aspect of it, which is there's this Israel lobby and they're sort of influential and they're driving us to war. That's one small selection.
So you think
Israel is not completely Jewish. Like, damn. They literally have non-Jewish people in their parliament. Never mind.
just to clarify, you think he's like a psychological operation?
Yeah, effectively, yes. And I don't think he's doing that knowingly, but I think that they're creating the bounds of the debate by having him be the spokesperson, because
Who is choosing him as a spokesperson? I mean,
Joe
I
Rogan,
could not disagree with
Joe Rogan. My God. Joe Rogan. The same Joe Rogan y'all always run around and say he's an idiot and a weed head. Now we're going to give him credit. Part 8 of the grift. Use established voices to try to downplay somebody you don't like because you secretly want to get on that platform. That was Nick Fuentes not subtly saying Joe Rogan needs to come talk to me. Or I need to go down to Austin and be on his show.
I just want to say that I patently disagree with you on this one. This is crazy. I think that he has moved the ball forward so much for, first and foremost, a lot of American Jews to have the courage to even question Israel, because in the same way that we were kind of brought up in the classroom with the, I guess you want to call it emotional engineering around the Holocaust, learning about the Holocaust is like the biggest, most evil event that ever happened.
I'm lying. Dead Killer, you want to go look at Israel's parliament one time? And go ahead and tell me I'm lying. That they don't have Christians and Muslims in their parliament. Go ahead and tell me I'm lying.
Imagine if you're Jewish, you learn about that. It's the same way that Black Americans in the classrooms learn about slavery. So I understood the trigger emotional response that Black Americans had during BLM, because there was so much conditioning that happened in the classroom that makes them think that when someone says white supremacy is back, you have to riot. And I will extend that same understanding. I disagree with it. I understand that when October 7th happened,
Okay. All right. He said I'm lying. Well, look at that. Well, look at that. Christian Allies Caucus. Well, look at that. Okay. All right. All right. Look at that. Okay. Let's see. New United Arab List. Well, look at that. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? They actually have Arabs on there. That's crazy. Huh. Okay. That's wild. Isn't that not wild? Whole Arabs. But okay. Now they need other allies. You just told me I lied and said that they didn't have any. Maybe I missed it. Did he not just say they didn't have any? Now they need other allies. This is in their country, sir. This is Israel. This is Israel. You know, the same way you just told me you can't do nothing in there unless you're Jewish. But, okay. Yeah. Okay. Fine. You got it.
you learn this, your whole existence, existential crisis for you. That's something happens.
Yes, I know what a caucus is, sir. So why do they have a Christian caucus, sir? Why? Why? Why do they have Arabs in their parliament? Why? That's not for other countries. That's for the people that live there to be represented. That's what a caucus is. Elected leaders to advance the interests of a group of people in a country. Just like they have the Hispanic caucus, just like they have the congressional black cuckasses, just like they have the Asian caucus, the Jewish caucus, APAC. Yeah. You'd be surprised to know they have a Russian caucus in this country. You'd be surprised.
In the fact that
Be quiet now.
these trips to kind of make sure that they stay into this, you this who you are, and if somebody questions this, like we could end up in the Holocaust again. You have to have some sort of understanding, understanding, even if they're wrong.
Right.
You have to give them a little bit of time, a little bit of grace here. And so for him to be doing what he's doing and to be enduring a lot of the same stuff that I'm enduring, like he is on lists, he is being attacked by every single people, all the people that are attacking me are certainly attacking Dave Smith. And your excuse is that he just is born Ashkenazi.
No, that's not my excuse. My problem.
And he's married to a Catholic, by the way. So that even that's the part that I'm even more confused about. You said like
That
he's a
killer,
religious
stop
Jew. No, he's
talking,
not. He's
'cause
married
you
to a
sound
woman.
What I
retarded
mean by
now.
that is my criticism of Jews comes from a religious place. As a Catholic, we recognize that the Pharisees put Jesus on the cross, and the Talmudists are the descendants of the Pharisees.
Here
But
we
also
go.
recognize-
He is not a Talmudist. So that's what I want to say.
But that's
He's
what
not
I'm
any of those things. He's married to a Catholic. He's just born Ashkenazi.
But
When I hear you say Dave Smith, Jew, I think it conflicts with your point about how even white people, like you're just kind of trained that you should just like there's something wrong with people being born white. No one should feel guilty about how they're born.
Look, it's
you know what I mean?
To sum it up succinctly, it's tokenism.
Well, Nick does.
It's a form of saying, we're criticizing the Jews in Israel. How do we soften and dampen the blow? Because we're going to get called anti-Semites if we bring on a guy criticizing Israel. I know we'll bring on a Jewish person because then we get to say, I'm not anti-Semite. Here's a Jewish person saying this. And here's the reason.
That's not why I had Dave Smith on. Actually, I had him on my podcast before I even left the Daily Wire. We had a 3-hour conversation about talking about war, and truly, because I think it's important for you to hear this. I think sometimes you internet too hard. The way that Dave Smith came onto our podcast on the Wire, he wasn't even on my radar. Skyler, who you just met, the producer, was a massive Dave Smith fan for years, and just kind of like what the libertarian debate was that was being had. He's like, you gotta check out this guy Dave Smith. I was like, cool, book him. Let's get him on the show. And it was my favorite podcast that I did at the Daily Wire. So I just liked him. Okay, that's it. There was no incentive of like, well, let me get this guy on again. I was like, can we create the magic of what we spoke about war? Because I'm kind of falling, I guess, down the rabbit hole and learning a lot. And he had a lot of information I didn't know.
Yeah.
And that was it. So there's nothing behind it. So when I hear you say it, I'm like, okay, are you interneting too hard? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A little bit. Do you think that you can kind of believe your own ideas? And look, we're all guilty of that.
No, and look, I mean, I'm going to stand by my point here, which is that me and Dave Smith are not ideologically on the same page. And we'll never be because I'm a Catholic and he is Jewish. Because he is Jewish, he still has affinity with Jewish people. And so my end game is to say, look, Thomas Aquinas said that Jewish people should be basically inserted to the Catholic Church. I don't believe that. But the idea that we have Jewish people in America that are billionaires, that are running all the major media conglomerates, that are influencing the government, and they take advantage of the dual citizenship, it literally cannot be allowed. Like by definition, systematically or systemically, this creates problems. And so when I go on my show, I'm saying we can't have Jewish people in government. Like, we can't have them having billions of dollars. This is a problem. It's like a national security problem because they are a fifth column. And as evidenced by recent developments, they're not loyal to America. Now, so I agree with you, and that's why I want to add this. I agree with you on the point that there is this operating fifth column of Zionism. No, but I want to be clear, and I'll tell you this is where we disagree. All right.
Because I think it's ridiculous to say to someone who's literally just born, he's like, I'm Ashkenazi, that is just his DNA, who is married to a Catholic, so you cannot call him a religious Jew. He is not a Zionist. He hasn't even been to Israel. So how do you just condemn him? And then also, how is that not toxic to what you're trying to do? So if you're saying that your entire platform is, I want to awaken.
When did we say, oh my God, sir, when did we say it was a political party? When did we say that? That's not even what I said. Jesus Christ, this guy is retarded. I literally said a caucus is a group of people that advance the interests, a group of people that come together to advance the interests of a group of people. Something to that effect. I never said they were political. Jesus Christ. Man, that killer, you're exposing how dumb you are in front of 58 people. I think you should stop. I really think you should stop. Not Chad. This was behind a paywall. You had to pay to watch this. It's just somebody put it on Twitter because she knew what was going to happen. But according to Dead Killer, that caucus just has to be political. even though they literally have a section in here. But, you know, he told me that there's no Christian serving. But, all right. I mean, that's fine. That's fine. We'll keep going. I don't have time to mess with dumb people.
People to this fifth column. Well, if I'm a Jewish person, okay, and I'm being raised, and maybe I'm worried about Israel because I kind of grew up and was told that I have to care about this, because whatever it is.
Nobody told you to care about Israel. Stop telling that lie.
Jew, guilty, you're Jew, doesn't matter, didn't make it, yeah, like you're 23andMe up there, Jew, guilty, okay? And you think that your ideas are going to grow with that perspective?
Well, they are. So that's happening, but
is that because of thanks to you or thanks to Dave?
I think it's thanks to me. But if you're asking me, I will answer. If you're lecturing me,
no,
I'll take a lecture.
I'm asking the question sincerely. You think it's growing because of you and not because of people like Dave who are going, okay, like, yeah, you can also think like this, it's okay to have this perspective. Like, you think it's because they're watching your show and they're going, he's got it right.
Let me give you a direct answer about the first part about Dave Smith. Just because he's born Jewish. What did he say when he went on Joe Rogan and he debated, what's the guy's name? He debated the British guy, I forget.
Douglas Murray.
Douglas Murray. When he debated Douglas Murray said, and you hear this is the woke right phenomenon, which Dave has criticized, but Douglas said, there is this dark element that is growing on the right. They're Holocaust deniers. They hate Jews. If they slip on a banana peel, they blame a Jew, and all the rest of it. Dave Smith said, I agree with you. Those people are wrong. I'm against Holocaust denial and all this sort of stuff. Joe Rogan went on the attack against Jake Shields, who's a friend of mine and a fighter and a boxer. And you see this over and over and over again with people like Dave Smith and even someone like Daryl Cooper, who's not Jewish. And I talked to Daryl recently, and we kind of made amends, but Daryl Cooper put out an article on his Substack saying the same thing. He said, I started talking about the Jews, I opened up this can of worms, now that's all people want to hear about. He said, so I'm done talking about it because there's people that can't handle it, and they're taking it too far. And when I hear that from Daryl Cooper, when I hear that from Dave Smith, when they say Israel's our satellite, our aircraft carrier, I say something's not right here. There's clearly a subtle difference here, and that has a lot to do with, maybe Daryl Cooper not being a complete radical. And I think that has a lot to do with Dave Smith being Jewish, because he says that his ancestors died in the Holocaust. Now, I don't think that he'll ever be able to say, in the way that I can, that maybe the Holocaust wasn't legitimate, or, maybe there's more to the story on World War II, because it's his grandparents.
Okay, but
he says my ancestors went up the smokestacks at Auschwitz. And someone like me, I say, I don't care about Auschwitz. I don't care about the Holocaust. I'm done hearing about it. I have no affinity with that.
Right. But you also mentioned Daryl Cooper, and you also mentioned Joe Rogan. These people are not Jewish, right?
Right.
So are you saying that they're all condemned? Why does it matter? If Dave Smith, maybe he believes that, maybe he's wrong, maybe he believes it, who knows? If Joe Rogan says that, maybe he's wrong, maybe he believes it. Let's say we don't know. Daryl Cooper. What is the difference between these three individuals? Like, why is one represent a problem for you versus like your idea? Going back to what you said, right? Mm-hmm. Let's tackle the idea. Let's actually debate the idea. So do you not see how you run into conflict with yourself? You're like, well, here's my story. I just wanted to debate the idea. And then when it comes to Dave Smith, rather than saying, I disagree with what you just said about whatever topic, saying that there is this strand, let's actually have the debate because the better idea will win. That's how my brain works.
Yeah, well, here's why. Because
you have no brain.
Gatekeeping. When Joe Rogan says, okay, you're cool. Dave Smith is cool. But Jake Shields, he's a Holocaust denier. That's not cool. That's dark and evil and real anti-Semitism. You hear that all the time. They say, are you like a Dave Smith guy or are you a real anti-Semite? Because you know what they say? If you're a real anti-Semite, you're out of the club. You don't get invited on the show. Piers Morgan won't have me on the show. He banned me. Tim Pool banned me. Joe Rogan banned me.
Oh,
That's like, wait a second. So,
no, fool. You got banned there because you brought Kanye West there and you acted like a fool for 20 minutes. That's why you got banned. I love how they didn't think we watched that in real time. Kanye came in with that stupid black mask on his face and walked out after 20 minutes. And Tim Pool thought you made him look like a fool and banned you. Let's not do that, sir.
People are able to go on these shows and express some form of the view, which is, again, like
plus you shitted on
Israel
them.
But if you go out and say, you know what, 6 million, I'm not buying it. I think this is a political narrative. I think it's atrocity propaganda serving a fifth column. Suddenly they say, well, that's real anti-Semitism. We want nothing to do with that. You remain outside. And so, and look, it's not to me about, people then say, oh, well, you're envious. Look, I love doing my show. I love doing what I do. I want the real truth to prevail. And there's this concept of a limited hangout. This is a CIA tool, and I'm sure you've heard of it, but for your audience that maybe hasn't, when they believe that disclosure is inevitable, a secret, a taboo, hidden narrative that they don't want to get out, when it's inevitable that it is going to go out, what they will do is they will leak out some of the truth. The public is so enamored with the new information, they go no further. And they actually don't get to the critical details. And I think that, we're basically at that point with the Israel lobby and the Jewish topic. It's clearly something is going on.
So you're just distrusting, and that's fine to say that you're distrusting.
No, well,
I just, yeah. I mean, I think it's fine to, and you are correct, by the way, that there are these operations where they do some limited hangouts. I'm very aware of that. That is true. And sometimes I have that in my mind when I'm watching something. I'm like, this feels like a limited hangout. Like they're not really kind of getting to the nucleus of the conversation. But I just really disagree with you that like just Dave is just guilty and condemned simply because he's born out.
Not because he's Jewish.
Well, in the clip, I think you just went like Dave Jew, and it's like, what does it matter? Dave Joe Rogan, not Jew.
I'm sick of the
Wait,
tokens.
okay, and I'll tell you another reason why I disagree with that. We can move on from Dave Smith. I like him, and I'm whoever I like, I don't really care.
Yes, you
adapt my
do.
opinions on the basis of yours, but I also just, in general, feel like I was that person for BLM, and I'm genuine. I was totally genuine, and that was kind of my wake-up call. BLM, I'd been really accepting of the victim narrative, maybe a little bit like you, naive, walked into it like, oh, I'm just not going to support this thing. I don't really want to be a Democrat. And
Oh my God. Why are you bringing up BLM? Why? I tell you that organization broke this broad. I don't understand why she's bringing them up. Look at her face. She looks scared. Those grifting broads really did a damage on her because she did that stupid documentary and nobody still brings it up to this day. So she wasted money. Maybe that's why she's really pissed at him.
and I dealt with the full weight of attempted cancellation by the left at first, and kind of like she's the token for the right, and people saying, well, they're only platforming her because she's a black person that agrees. And to some degree, that's true. Like obviously, like there is an element of tokenism, but I'm saying what I believe. I was saying what I believe,
and I don't doubt his sincerity. I don't doubt his sincerity at all.
So why problematize it? That's what I'm trying to get to. So it's then he's out there having to fight amongst these pro-Israel people. He's fighting the same Zionists that we are on the topic of Israel. And on top of that, he's got to deal with Nick Fuentes talking trash about him because like, well, this is just who cares? If he can't help who he is, I couldn't help it. I was black and disagree with BLM. I'm just black and disagree with BLM.
Well, here's the reason why. It's a little bit irritating because Dave Smith, for all the flack that he's getting, he remains on YouTube. He's been on YouTube the whole time. He remains on Twitter. He's been on Twitter the whole time. He has bank accounts. He has payment processors. And now that people are waking up about Israel, they want to invite a Jewish person on to tell us we're not real anti-Semites. We're not Holocaust deniers, but maybe something's wrong with Israel. And here I am, having been.
Part 9 of the grift. Understanding that you're not part of the game. And you never were. You shouldn't have to explain that.
Been banned on YouTube, been banned by banks, every streaming platform, all of it condemned, life destroyed, and people still are gatekeeping me and saying you're a real anti-Semite, and I'm saying, well,
Because you are.
Obviously, we didn't come far enough. So I don't doubt his sincerity. He's a big boy. He doesn't mind that I'm trash talking him, and I still consider him a friend, even though I've been critical of him. But we have to go a little bit further than to say something's up with the Zionists or is.
He already, sir, Deuce, he already said he was. How was he well known in politics if he came on the scene in 2019? How was he well known? He literally told Candace and the entire audience his backstory. He got in through Daily Wire. That's not well known. Okay, since we have to explain this again, Nick Fuentes put in no work. He got an opportunity to debate somebody, and somebody from Daily Wire put it on Periscope. That's how he got famous. He just admitted that. He's so famous in politics, nobody cites him. He's so famous in politics, he sat there for about 10 minutes bitching about how he didn't get opportunities to go on Fox News. But he's well known in politics because people shout his name out. Y'all's criteria for people getting opportunities is so low, it's crazy. Y'all don't value work. Yes, Candace is a grifter. Dude, do you not know her history? Or you need a refresher course? She literally started on the left. She was literally doxing people out after college. That's how she got noticed on Facebook. Then she grifted over to the right and started talking about black people and political issues. And if Kanye West didn't say her name, we wouldn't even have known about her. She'd still be on X trying to get an opportunity. I didn't realize that's not the definition of a grifter.
Most of the people in MAGA are grifters. Why do you think they're calling them the influencer class now? They're trying to separate them from the grift. Why do you think there's people out there right now on X calling out people that have been grifting off Trump's name for almost a decade? They knew they were grifters, but because they were sounding like them, they accepted it until they couldn't accept it anymore. That's usually how a grift works. Why do you think since the election, a lot of them are now trying to be bold and ask questions? Because they realize their grift is over. If you need one more example, Vivek Ramaswamy is a perfect example. He used to be a leftist. Then all of a sudden he tried to grift into libertarian spaces. That didn't work. Nobody cared. Then he said, oh, now I'm in the Republican Party, but I still lean to the libertarian side, and tried to talk to conservatives. And what happened? He has no motion out here right now. None. So go ahead and tell me that I don't know what a grifter is. I would bring up Tatum Tots, because he admitted on a podcast that he used to be an ex-liberal. And then when Trump started running, he went over to the right. Yeah, that's not a grifter. Okay.
Israel. It's not Israel. It is the Jews. And I think that Dave Smith, being a Jewish libertarian, I don't think he's ready to go that far. I don't think he has.
They didn't change parties, sir. See, this is what I mean. Y'all not hip. I'm going to help you. Most of those grifters never changed parties. They went independent. They saw where the money was. That's why they ran over to Trump. Now they're stuck in it. They can't explain themselves. Every time they come out with their own opinion, they're getting killed online. That's the definition of a grift. You don't think it's easy to pull up how these people were in college when Obama was around? Yeah. They were waving the blue flag. Now they're waving a red one. You're asking me that they don't grift? Hardcore liberals, all of a sudden are conservative. Good. Since you want to play that game with me, deuce. Candace is getting killed by the majority. Are you? Okay, go ahead, deuce. We'll play that game this morning. Tell me what a conservative is. Go ahead. While I let this play, you can explain to us what a conservative is, and you tell me if Candace Owens pulls that card. Go ahead.
I want to know what you mean by that. So just so we're clear, is your perspective that if people don't platform you, it's because they don't want to go too far?
Maybe that they aren't that far ideologically, but then that's my job to push them farther, and that's why I say it. That's why I say,
Maybe they disagree with you. Yeah, because that's another thing. They disagree with you.
But I'm gatekept.
Okay, but the more important, so for me, if I care deeply about what's happening to the Palestinians, obviously. I've made a point to talk about that, and I very much see what you're speaking about, that there is this coordinated, very sinister movement. I think it operates on the left and the right, whether it's the ADL or APAC, the money is flowing to instantly cancel people, to get them fired, and it's vicious. I mean, it is dirty business, and to survive it's hard for most people to even survive it when they go through it, because they're so smeared. It's like an effective tar and feathering, and where it's happening when you were 18 is ridiculous. But at the same time, if I'm going to get...
Okay, you said pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, lower taxes, less government regulation. That sounds like, oh, Lord. That sounds like a libertarian to me. But okay, fine. You think that's a conservative. Tell me how Candace Owens is about that and she's a feminist. Because last I heard, conservatives are not about feminism. Go ahead.
My platform or speak about that, I want to make sure that I'm hosting people that can explain that to people that otherwise may not even be aware of that.
Right.
So if you're going to host, if you're, why are you seeing this person down on your show? Well, because we're having a conversation about something that's important. I can either learn from that person, right, or I think that this person can teach something to my audience, right? if I were to host you, and that was the clip that's coming out, do you think people are going to go, yeah, that just made me realize, here I am, just believing that we should, I'm a normal conservative like you said you were 18, I like these people, and the first thing I hear Nick Fuentes say is, Jay, they're not going to think that you're a good person.
This is concern trolling. I'm sorry.
No,
This is tone
but
policing.
you just said, no, it's not, no, it is not tone
absolutely.
policing. Hold up, let's back it up and let you speak. It is not tone policing. What I am saying is that you just went through
Here we
that,
go.
and you genuinely were coming up, that you were a conservative, you genuinely liked Ben Shapiro, you genuinely thought these things. So that doesn't, you would not look back on yourself and say, well, that was problematic. You feel like that makes sense.
Right.
And I'm saying to you that the majority of people have that perspective. You don't have to assign an evil motive. Get into something because you believe it. That's it. It's just that simple.
Okay.
And if you're then going to have somebody who's condemning them, what are we learning? If you're just going to say, you're this, you're that, it's like you've forgotten yourself. Like some people just aren't there wherever you are.
Okay, but I missed the part where I condemned him. And I talked about the Dave Smith part repeatedly. And by the way, you're mixing it up and saying, well, if people watch a show, what are they going to think if they see that clip?
I'm just trying to say to you, why would someone maybe say,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Come on. I mean, so,
Oh, Lord.
I'm a funny
Yeah.
guy. The show-
Okay, great. Trump got 70% of the Libertarian vote, and the Libertarian Party is in disarray right now. So how about that? Trump don't espouse libertarian policy. He went there to get some money. And he saw how Spike Cohen and Chase Oliver were getting after it. And he had to shut that down because he didn't need the Libertarian split in the Republican vote. Which was actually a smart play on his part. By the way, most libertarians don't agree with Trump. But, okay. Especially the fact that he brought Pam Bondi into his cabinet, who is pro-gun control and red flag laws. But, yeah, okay.
What are they going to think if they see that clip?
I'm just trying to say, why would someone maybe say, go ahead.
Come on. I mean, so, you know what? I'm a funny guy. I'm bombastic. I'm provocative. That's part of it. And you know what? You can concern, troll, and tone police about, whether I...
Kamala married a white Jew. What did I say about that? I say he was a clown. And the people that have been here can back me up. I've been shitting on Kamala since 2019. Because I know where you were going to go next. No, I didn't vote for her. We don't have no love for Mamala over here. She needs to stay exactly where she's at in purgatory until she gets that lucrative book deal where she's going to tell everybody that she's not black. That's what we need. Candace Owens' white husband, his side of the family don't even like her. She probably has to stay in the maid's quarters on the compound when they go to London to go visit.
Do this. We're laughing during the clip.
Yes,
when I
it's
laugh,
funny.
it's funny.
I'm laughing at you making fun of me. I don't mind you making fun of me.
I don't mind you making fun of me. I don't mind you making fun of me. Let this would have been a black person. You ready to go to litigation?
That about you because I think that you're hardcore. I think we're kind of similar in that way. We don't have thin skin. So and I appreciate that about you. And I know that Dave Smith is the same way. And I said on that show and other shows.
What did
I think he's a good guy.
Did Candace say what?
He's sincere and I respect him and I think he's a good person actually.
He is.
But I do think that we disagree. And to the extent that I'm critical of the situation, it's not a personal directed at him. I know maybe it comes across that way or it sounds like that to you, but I've said it repeatedly on my show, and that's not the only time I talked about it. I said the problem is this idea, and again, intentional or not, that we need permission from a Jewish person sitting there so we're not real anti-Semites to talk about the issues. And I also disagree with Dave Smith on the extent of it. Now, maybe he fundamentally disagrees. I'd love to talk to him about it.
Yes, he's considered an anti-Semite.
It does come from a place of disagreement. I'm not condemning.
Yeah, I think he genuinely disagrees with you, and that's kind of the point I'm trying to say when I say don't internet too hard, is that sometimes you can assign a conspiracy where it's just not the motive. Like for me, I just wanted to have Dave on my show, I had him on before, and I think he's great, and I like his...
Don't conspiracy too much. This is the same chick running around saying that Emmanuel Macron's wife is a man. Celebrating the fact that somebody got a lawsuit tossed out because they asked if she was a man or not. But don't conspiracy a lot. The same chick who was running around talking about the Epstein files. The same chick that was talking about the JFK files. 9/11. But don't conspiracy too much. Okay. Okay. Deuce, why do y'all care if she's a man or a woman? Why do y'all care? He fucking her, not you. Why do you care? Okay, fine. It's found out that she used to be a man. So what? How does that affect your life? Let's play the game. Great. She exposes the fact that she used to be a man. So what? Y'all care about the wrong damn things. That's a whole nother president in a whole nother country. Why do you care about what the France got going on? When France been freaky like that. Why do y'all care? Y'all motherfuckers kill me. Correct, sir. She does celebrity news. Okay. That should tell you something. Since you wanted to ask me why she was grifting. That's another concept of the conservative grift. When politics ain't really hitting on shit, yeah. We either go into the conspiracy lane or we start talking about celebrity news. Perfect example. I'll give you another one. Amala Ekpanobi tried that when she left PragerU. She started talking about politics on her YouTube channel. It wasn't hitting on shit. Nobody cared about what she was saying then. So she went over to celebrity news. Started talking about dating and doing the dating content. Doing pop my balloon content. Then all of a sudden she disappears for months saying that somebody was stalking her. Okay. Yeah.
Stuff. He's one of my favorite followers. That's it. I didn't even think about the fact, well, he's a Jew, so let me have him on to tokenize the situation.
Yes, nobody cared. Yes, nobody cared, sir. Nobody cared. Goddamn. Nobody cared. You can tell me numbers all you want. Nobody cared. Most people, do you understand that's not even in the lexicon right now? If that was that big, that Bridget Macron might be a man, nobody outside of Candace Owens' sphere cares. We don't care. Jesus. Who cares? People cared more about Diddy than that.
In terms of why I could try to appreciate where if somebody's trying to wake somebody up to something, you know, you could dump, I guess, a bucket of ice on someone when they're sleeping and wake them up. Or you could kind of say, okay.
Wrong, Deuce. They care now because you were told to care. You didn't care 5 years ago. You didn't care. When Epstein allegedly killed himself, you didn't care after that. After Ghislaine got sent to jail, y'all didn't care. So let's not do that. You're caring now because these influencers are telling you to care. Now they're running around telling you, oh, we have all these sources in government that are telling us there's more to come out, that it's even worse than we thought. And y'all are over there saying, oh my God, see, we were right. Y'all are being worked. And it's sad to see that y'all are letting social media influencers tell you how to think. That's sad. Because all they want to do is expose this supposed list so they could go harass celebrities. They don't want no justice for these victims. None. By the way, screenshot number 2. She's still looking scared.
Are you starting to, with my sister, we have a debate right now about me being a Catholic, my sister's not Catholic. I don't need
This fool said I don't get no viewers. Yeah. He can't read. There we go, family. We got somebody that can't read numbers. How you a drop out of Sesame Street?
What I mean, here's where I was. My sisters were Democrat when I got into politics, and we've always kept a sense of humor about things, so it never became this toxic name calling stuff. Well, it was, but it was like with a sense of humor about it. Like my sisters would be like, "Have fun at your Klansman rally," and I'd be like, "Cool," and say, "Ask her to watch my cat." But the idea that I think that at the moment that I recognize something, or at the moment that I become something, everyone else must therefore become that thing. I think that's asinine. I do.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that. Look, my show is my platform, and I say what I feel about the situation, and my audience is already there with me. You know, I'm doing a show, and by the way, I don't even do it for the audience. I say what I say. I said it 8 years ago when it really wasn't popular.
Sir, how much are you getting a video? Why do you care about my numbers? I didn't get into this for numbers. I get into this to teach. Why do you care about my numbers? Okay, since you want to care about my numbers, Deuce, let's do this. Since you want to care about my numbers, because I don't even understand why my numbers all of a sudden are a point of contention. You have 4 subscribers. Why do you care about my numbers? Now go ahead and tell me you don't do content. Go ahead. Go ahead. If you don't like what I'm putting down, leave. Very simple. Your day is not going to stop or be impeded by you not listening to me. You're mad that I'm supposedly getting $5.38 from YouTube. Well, obviously they like the fact that I was saying what I said and it allowed me into the partner program and giving me the little penance that you brought up. So what? I'm getting paid next Monday. So what? That goes to my kid.
I said it 5 years ago and it was a little more popular. I'm saying it now. And, and that's the difference, I guess, is this is a common critique of me and my audience. People say, well, are you being tactful? Are you being strategic? These kinds of things. I'm not setting plays. I will acknowledge I'm impulsive. I am bombastic. I'm out there. I'm a maniac, My job is to put the truth out there. I am the bucket of ice cold water, and I'm dumping it on people, and some people are going to get it, some people it's going to take them longer. I'll let other people set the plays. I'll let other people kind of do the breadcrumbs and do this incremental approach. Me, I kind of figured it out. I was off to the races from the beginning, and I just want to cut to the chase and get to the most fundamental part of the idea. And so, that's why some people don't like me, granted. But I think the big picture is that I have been suppressed for 10 years. Because we could sit here all day long and say, were you mean to this one? Were you mean to that one? Was this out of pocket? The fact of the matter is, I have been more censored than anybody for 10 years.
Yeah.
How were you suppressed when you just told everybody that you were... Never mind. You got on RSBN, so how the hell were you suppressed? You see, I didn't lie. It's hilarious. You were suppressed, yet you got over, thanks to people at the Daily Wire, you got over. You got on a broadcasting network. Now all of a sudden, you talking about how you were suppressed for 10 years. You so suppressed. Why? Because you stream on Rumble? You got people giving you donations. That's suppression. Oh, okay. All right. I didn't realize that was suppression. Again, he's telling you what the grift is. I didn't get my ultimate goal of being on national TV accomplished. That's the goal. He's mad that he's regulated to the internet. But I thought the internet was the wave of the future. Mainstream media is dead. They don't want to save the country. They just want to be celebrities. By the way, screenshot number 3.
The real reason. So, and this is
So you're not still being censored. I'm just trying to provide feedback.
I am, though.
Provide feedback to what you just
You're
said.
not censored,
They
sir.
have it on their platform. I'm not
Jesus
forcing you. Go on,
Christ.
say whatever you want. Actually, I would make the argument that you're kind of home policing our shows by saying, why won't they? What?
How the hell are you censored? You just went and talked to Alex Jones. How are you censored? I don't get this. You're getting shouted out by prominent names. How are you suppressed? You got people saying, oh, look, you got mainstream media here. They clocked in 40,000 viewers at this time, but Nick Fuentes, he had 60,000. How the hell are you suppressed? But all right.
Whatever. I'm just saying, don't assign evil motive where there just might not be one. Like, it's just, okay,
I was mad that you don't believe me, but I...
Okay, Jesus Christ, God Almighty. Now he could come and we can have a conversation, or he could wait to call me home and we'll have a conversation. I'll explain why I said that. Be quiet now. And if you're gonna spell the Lord's name, spell it with a O, not an I. Thank you so much.
was mad that you're like, okay, you're mad that. Well, I was mad that you wouldn't have me on the show because look, I stand you so hard on Twitter. I was Candace Owens, and the Groypers were there for you for Daily Wire, and they wanted to
The
collab with you
Groypers.
last year, and you kept saying, "Well, we'll do it. We'll do
Look
it."
at her smiling.
Okay, what are you talking about? Let's back this up. Because I do want to get to this. This is actually something that I find to be very funny. First of all, I don't know what a Groyper is, okay? This is, and I will give you credit where credit is due. You have managed to infect the brains of 40-plus-year-old men. And that is actually, I think, the most compelling part about you, is I watched as I was coming up in my career, and I will say I've had
Wait a
four
minute.
kids
Wait a
in the last
minute.
2
Are you
years.
praising this man for? She's praising this man for identifying 40-plus-year-old losers. Oh Lord. So should we give Fresh and Fit credit for bringing out virgins? Oh no. Fine, Candace, by your logic, we should just praise OnlyFans women for bringing women into their femininity, right? But I'm sure you'd have a problem if I said that. And exactly what is Nick leading them to? Okay.
I don't pay attention to, I think you were on Cozy TV.
Yes.
You were banned everywhere. I only know that because 40-year-old men were obsessively asking me to come out and condemn you. And I've only one of them, Seth Dillon of the Babylon Bee. He lives in a corporate simulation. And I'm just, to me, interested in the idea that the 18-year-old kid who's been banned everywhere, and you have to jump through the hoops to watch him on this obscure Cozy.tv, has managed to completely send you mad. That's fascinating to me. Credit where credit is due. The Groypers, are truly living in the mind.
Yeah, he went from that to Rumble, but he's suppressed. Okay.
Minds of neocons. There's no question about it, okay? So for me, genuinely, I didn't watch your content. I gotta say, you're not from moms. I'm very into the anti-vax stuff. No, I'm not telling you that
I
I
listen.
show, what?
Phenoch, I care less. Let her post me. I want her to tell me one thing that I said about her that was a lie. No, and you forget, she's not going to post me. She's going to send me a letter from a lawyer saying that I defamed her somehow. Because she likes litigation against black people. So she could do that. I don't mind taking some of her money. I don't mind it.
On Cozy TV. What's Nick Fuentes saying over at Cozy TV?
You're not?
No, I'm not. And so the first time that I started seeing your clips was kind of at the same moment that I got fired, because at the same time-ish is when you got put back on Twitter. And I am active on Twitter, and I'm seeing clips here, and I'm seeing
But
clips
he's
there, and I'm seeing,
suppressed. He's back on Twitter, but he's suppressed.
Scenario so much more hilarious, just kind of getting into the theology.
He's going to tell you he
And
can't get a blue
I
check,
think
but he's
Nick
suppressed.
Fuentes thing, especially when Jeremy Boring, then the CEO of Daily Wire, hosted this Christ is King audio live, and that was the first time I ever heard your backstory. So I genuinely was so, I guess, not blind to the Groyper movement, but how influential you were that these people, as Jeremy admitted in that audio, were watching your show, which was on an app that I'd never even heard about. So I want to give credit where credit is due. But your strategy of, I'm going to go on my show and call this person out for not having me on the show when you didn't ask to come on the show, and you had a line of communication because of some legal stuff that was happening in the background, where I was asking you to do a decent thing and tell the truth about the fact that we didn't have this relationship that I think some people thought that we had going on in the background, a political relationship or strategizing together. So I just think it was ridiculous. I'm like, if you wanted to come on the show, why didn't you just send a big boy message and say, hey, Candace, we should collab? And that's what I mean when I say I think the internet too hard. If you think the way to get that is to go, Groyper war, Groypers, go ahead. I am the exact opposite demeanor. If you do that, I will definitively not have you on the show. And the irony is, we had the discussion, so I think I messaged you and I was like, what's the deal with you on YouTube? I have you on the show, we were just kind of getting set up here. Are you allowed to? And you answered and said, I don't know. You said I'd
She just lied again. And I'm going to prove she just lied. This was the same chick who was shitting on the Breakfast Club for years. And all of a sudden she got fired. That was one of the first places she ran to. Joe Budden and them shitting on her for years. What did she do? Had him on her platform. And then went to Jersey to go talk to him. So she lied again.
people people have had me on who've gotten hit. I'm like, okay, well, we're still trying to figure this thing out. And the next thing I know, you've launched a group war. And I'm going, if you think this is the last strategy you should possibly take if you ever want to go with me, I don't respond to like anonymous accounts. Like I'm sorry, I'm not 13. I have toddlers at home. Like I get to be like, I want. And I say to them, if you would like something, you need to use your manners. You need to say, can I please have? And thank you. And that's how I felt you were kind of executing this request, was in a really immature way.
Yeah.
Immature.
Well, I think you're kind of starting in the middle of the story, because when you left the Daily Wire, everybody was on Twitter and in your live chat and in the comments saying, we want to collab with Nick Fuentes. And you said in the live chat, we're going to do it. We have the screenshots in the live chat for your show. You said, we're going to do the collab. I have the screenshots, though.
Are you potentially speaking about like a live chat that was going? You think that I responded to somebody saying
your channel said we're going to do the collab?
Okay, maybe are you talking about YouTube?
Yes.
Genuinely, I don't know what you're talking about, but we can add the screenshot. We can add it because I definitively do not remember saying we're going to do the collab. Even if I think I was, I did reach out to you and say, what's the deal? Because we were talking about, like you said, we were like, we should get him on.
Yeah.
But then, in between me saying we should get him on and you saying I don't know about YouTube, suddenly there was like we're launching a war on.
Yeah, and I was like, let's talk about that beginning of the story, because people were pushing for the collab, and there's a screenshot where you say, yeah, we'll do the collab, and this was like a period of many months.
Okay, fact checking Nick Fuentes again here. So he sent us 2 screenshots where he says that I said we'll do the collab, and I do not believe these screenshots say that. So these are the ones that he sent us. Here's number 1. He doesn't show us what I was responding to, but we can guess because I said yes, I would talk to Nick. Why not? So that makes me believe that a person probably said, would you ever have Nick on the show? Would you ever speak to Nick Fuentes? And I said yes, I would talk to him. Why not? I never said we were collabing. And then this is the second screenshot that Nick sent us. It reads, I will literally speak to anyone on my podcast. My podcast is not for crybabies who hate speech. So I'm not certain how he could have interpreted that as I confirmed I was doing a collab with him, but those are the screenshots he submitted, so I will allow you guys to interpret that yourself. Back into the conversation.
And then you go into a Twitter space with Dan Bilzerian, and there was, I think one of those Jewish guys was on there. I forget his name. Mike Myers was on there. Andrew Meyer was on there.
Oh, yeah.
You brought him on there. I think Andrew Tate was on there. People said in your replies, get Dave Smith, get Dave Smith. You said he's invited to everything I do. All the replies said get Nick Fuentes on there. I'm not banned on Twitter. And so, here's
that was after you had launched this, like...
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, I think it
I
was.
don't think it was. But either way, here's the point. It just felt like you were making excuses, which was, oh, well, it's the YouTube thing. Oh, it's a legal thing. If it's YouTube, we could have done it on my platform.
You know the legal thing was real. I still can't speak about what that legal thing was, but that was very real. And
Is it not in effect now? Has something changed?
not for a discussion for another time, but the point being is like, that wasn't a joke. You know that wasn't a joke. You were on the phone with my lawyer.
I know.
And the accusations that were being thrown at me were just inaccurate in regarding that legal thing. And so when I reached out to you to ask you to just clarify that this wasn't real, whatever it was, I was asking you to just do a decent thing. Like that was not on a, okay, well, let's collab or not collab. It was like, hey, this is my real life. You impacted by something that I didn't do. But then you kind of, in a really crappy manner, spoke about that on your show, something that I was privately going through that is still lasting. Okay, I have a lot of stuff going on in the background, and I was just like, what kind of person is this? Like, you know, like I'm fighting for my life. I'm being attacked by Zionists. I just got fired. I have kids at home. I mean, at no point you just go like, and then you knew that I had some legal stuff drama going on in the background. At no point you just go like, maybe she genuinely just like, or I'm just gonna reach out to her and say, hey, we're already talking. Do you want to maybe collab down the future? That's the adult thing.
Wow, Michael D. You'd be shocked that people take their cameras and go on the street and film content and get money for it. You'd be shocked that people are sitting in their kitchens right now. If you swipe up, I'm sure you could see somebody in their kitchen just cooking and shooting the shit, and they're getting paid for it. There's people in the car right now streaming or in trucks delivering things. Oh. You would be surprised. You can go on YouTube right now and look up reaction content from people who take stuff from Hollywood and react on it. Oh, shit. Do you call them out too? I don't think you do. By the way, the person that you're lamenting the fact that I'm doing this against has done that plenty of times. She does it on her show all the time. Takes people's work and reacts to it. This is the age of social media. If this offends you, I think you should delete every social media app you have, including YouTube. Everybody does it. Hell, you should pull every license from every TV station out there. The second they go email somebody a fight that they want their fight video or their playing video, you should say they need to have their license pulled because they're taking somebody else's work. Sir, this is called me teaching and exposing the lies of her and Nick Fuentes. Because I could have easily, since this is downloaded, I could have easily just re-uploaded it. I chose not to do that. See in the title, it says reaction.
We're teaching over here. So if you don't like it, you can leave. Thank you so much.
To do. And going to your point, when I said he's always invited to anything I do, I literally had not invited Dave Smith. I put just,
Yeah, I know.
I had not invited him. I was just saying, if he wants to jump on and say, let me on, I'll let him on. That's it.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. I think that you can't have your cake and eat it too, okay? Because you also went and said, I've never spoken to Nick Fuentes before in my life, but that was a lie.
Okay, but
Or you didn't know, but we had spoken before.
okay, yeah, let's clarify that. Yes, I was wrong that there was that one conversation you pointed out about when my husband was working for.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to him. He called her a liar to her face and she had to admit it.
What's the app? A parlor app.
Parlor. Oh, I'm sorry. So there were two, actually.
Yeah, but like, I mean, come on, Nick.
Two!
We had this long
Okay,
relationship.
but we can't play this game now. We
What
can't
do
play
you
this. You can't then get on my case and say, well, look, I'm just going through a lot and I have this crappy stuff going on.
No, I'm the same way.
But I
You're
didn't
a
know about
crappy
the
person.
screenshot, but I didn't
How
the conversation.
how are you letting this man punk you in your house? How are you getting punked in your own house? And how did her husband allow this white man in there? He must be in London with the nanny again. If you know, you know.
The other one.
Years ago. I mean, okay, yes, okay, you're right. At first, there was a conversation that you can read it live. Oh, we should throw it up. Let's throw it up in post. People can read what you're okay. Like back in 2019, 18, 19, there was a communication.
And then in 2022, during the Kanye thing.
Yes, and I've always been honest. I've talked about that many times. That was the first time I remembered us having a conversation was the Kanye stuff. So when I was saying the first time I spoke to him was over the Kanye thing, and I've been very honest
You
about
said
that.
that after, because first you said we had never spoken, and then I insinuated, no, maybe that's not true, and then you said, oh, we talked
I,
already.
I can legitimately tell you that that's factually very wrong because I had to.
Michael D, how is hold on, Michael D, how is he against race mixing? He's a half breed. His mom's Hispanic. He hid that for years. Somebody found that out, and he had to end up admitting it. He tries to cover it up by saying, "Oh, they're still married." So what? Them real white boys ain't gonna accept you. That's why. Low key. That's another reason why they don't bring him on. Because everything he talks about on his platform is a direct contradiction to who he is. But, yeah, you can call him whatever you want. It's the truth. Allow them. See, you got to understand. People like him, Amala, they like to pull that move. That, oh yeah, I'm on the white side because, I'm half white. So I'm going to try to appeal to them while downplaying my blackness in the case of Amala that got me over. Because it's funny, when she was on the left, they accepted her more than when she went on the right. She ran on her platform many times and shitting on her Nigerian father for not being there. And he's a piece of shit for that, but still. Always praising the white mama. And most times them folk didn't care. They're like, just get back to knocking black people. That's all we care about. We don't care about your life story. Move on. And here we are now. About almost, I want to say 7 years later. She's irrelevant now. Again, Michael, they didn't care when she was knocking black people. When they didn't have any use for her, then her blackness came up. So it was always there. They were just waiting for the opportunity to bring it up. Just like now, Candace is going through her bullshit. All of a sudden now, they're bringing her up as the crazy black woman. But when she was knocking black people, she was based. Brandon Tatum, they loved him when he started talking about them cops and how the cops were always right when it came to black people. All of a sudden, he did that Uvalde commentary and Tyree Nichols. All of a sudden, his blackness showed up. Them sitting in there agreeing with us, talking about
the black cops are the worst type of cops because y'all stood there and beat them up, and now one of y'all stopped them. He talking about, oh, some of them shouldn't go to jail. His comment section killed him for that, saying you're the worst type of black cop. White people were saying this. So his blackness showed up. Yeah, she said it. She said it. Tatum, the videos are still up there. I played the live streaming on this program, and I told my folk, watch the live chat when he says what he's about to say. And when he said it, you see that chat light his ass up. Then he had to go make another video try to clarify what he said because he got his ass lit up. And that's why they don't even go to him anymore. That's how it always works with these grifters.
Was very open about the fact that I had a conversation with you when you were hanging out with Ye. You can talk about that openly right now. I can care less. But the point is that what was the difference in what we're talking about is a communication about a certain situation versus like Candace and Nick had some like background relationship or more flirting. That's just not true, you know. And so that was what I was trying to dispel because people were very seriously creating an insane conspiracy theory that I was coordinating with. It was insane. All I can say to you is that retrospectively it was insane. And so if I forgot one communication about
A grifter is somebody who switches sides for money or access. That's what grifter is. And most times they don't believe what they're saying. And like I said, a perfect example is most of MAGA. Most of them were sitting there on the Democrat side. Yeah, they might have been less enamored with Obama the second term, but they were still hardcore Democrats. Trump come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden, they want to act like they've been conservatives their whole lives. And here we are a decade later almost, and now this Israel thing comes up, the Epstein thing comes up, now all of a sudden they're all at war with each other. So it was never built on good faith. It was built on how much money and access I can get. You can't in one breath say you don't agree with what a government does, then all of a sudden kiss the government's ass. That's a grift.
Parlor, you are correct. I went and checked, and I was like, yeah, no, he's right. I told him that my husband was not working, I think, for like Google, or was, I don't know what you thought was happening, but it wasn't real, and I told you that. So I just kind of shut down some conspiracy that you were on. And then was the Kanye thing. And there were other people who genuinely believed that when I like in this communicative relationship coordinating, like I'm working with the gripers. And that was, it was just, I don't know what to say, it was really loony. You know, coming from older men, and I realized that you were kind of very effectively getting to people.
That's true. But yeah, I mean, look, and you know, this is a long time ago now, it was a year ago. I didn't prepare the timeline in advance, but the way that I recall, you said we had never talked before. Then you said we talked once during Yang. No, and then I believe that was the case, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Like I said, I don't have it in front of me, but it felt like you were. True. I felt like you weren't being completely forthcoming about it.
Please be forthcoming. I'm the most honest person.
Wait a minute. I am gold leader. How did the leftists push everybody out of the party that disagreed with them? They're literally disagreeing with people right now in their party, and they're still around. Leftists are literally arguing with each other right now. They're still there. Who's getting pushed out? Yes, they may have created other factions, but they're still there. These grifters were never real. They were leftists that went over to the right because they saw money and they saw a bunch of idiots ready to open their wallets. That's why now you're seeing them kill themselves and falling over themselves trying to explain Epstein. They want to be the first one to be right. And they're looking foolish. Their own crowds are sitting there right now questioning them, saying how much of a traitor they are.
record. You can
No,
do
no,
whatever
I'm
you want
saying-
right now. Before, what did I lie about? I did forget the parlor
You said we had never
communication.
talked before. We had actually talked a couple of times.
Yeah, but about the same situation. You get my point. We were dealing with something with Ye. This was not like reaching out like, hey, Nick,
But that's not what you
what's that
said. You didn't say
music?
we talked about unrelated things and we talked before.
Okay.
You said we've never talked before. I don't know anything about him. I don't know him.
I didn't know anything about you. That's the point. I knew
So
that
why'd you
Ye was
vouch for
hanging
me
out with
Ye?
you.
Why'd you say I was okay?
I said to Ye, the point being is that I said to Ye, based on my own assessment of things, like I thought that there was a bigger risk because somebody was getting involved with this campaign, and I had known for that individual to be open about blackmailing people. I obviously, as a friend of Ye, knew everything that was going on. I was concerned. And I expressed
Blackmailing
that to
people.
him. He's mad at me for this and that, because Ye was mad at me for a couple of days. And I said, please just tell him this. That was it. So our communication.
So Ye was mad at you. Okay. Ye was mad at you.
We talked about Milo, and then you
Yeah.
vouched for me with Ye.
Yeah, and Milo and I
now you
since-
follow Milo on Twitter.
Yeah, Milo and I since have talked about it, because, and he respects the fact. That's why I said I'm very honest, so you're not going to catch me here, Nick.
I'm not trying to catch
But
you. You're trying to lecture me.
No, you can talk. I want you to be as open as possible about this because I just think that there's been so much crap that's been said that's just untrue. Yes, the person was Milo. I wasn't going to identify him, but Milo and I have since talked about it because he recognizes that I was just concerned about Ye. It's the reason I communicated to you is because the person that I knew was not you. It was not Milo. It was Ye. And I was concerned, obviously, with everything that was going down. He had been at my house and things were going down. I was just concerned, so I wanted to make sure that I was protecting him because what I knew from Milo publicly, because I didn't know Milo either. Have I had correspondence with Milo in the past, similar to you? Yeah, I saw him at David Harwood's Freedom Foundation, but I didn't know Milo, I didn't know you. And I was just trying to protect Ye. And so the extent to our conversation was about me trying to be a good friend to somebody else. It wasn't like this, and I told people that. I didn't tell the audiences that, but I'm saying that I
You didn't tell the audience, but that's key, because I'm not a part of the other
No, I
conversation.
said to you, I said I didn't know you. I didn't know you. Just because I communicate with you about Ye doesn't mean that we know each other, Nick.
I don't know him. We've never talked. I've never had anything to do with
Nick,
him before.
that's not true.
Okay,
We never talked. That's not true.
That's what you said.
Okay.
And then I said, we did talk.
Okay,
And then
we're
you said,
going to give you the right to pull the clip of me saying I've never talked to Nick Fuentes because I communicated with you about Ye. I was open about that.
Okay, well,
and
we
since
can go
then,
find
just to
the
clarify, spoke to Milo about that, and said, look, he understands that was my perspective. Obviously, getting into the movement, just like you when I first kind of was coming in, I was reading a lot of Milo's blogs, a lot of his writings.
The movement.
And he kind of turned the lights on for me in terms of feminism and the BLM movement. So we never really had, I would say the same exact thing. I didn't even know Milo. I knew he was writing, I knew his work, but I didn't know him. So I just
And again, her crowd, whoever saw this, didn't pick up on the grift. She needed Milo. So first, it was her going to David Horowitz for a weekend to complete her conversion to conservatism. Now, when she was in the movement at the beginning, she was listening to Milo. The same Milo that the right canceled. You can't make this up. The same Milo that most of the conservatives were not feeling when he was at his height, unless he said something funny or he was going after somebody. Got it.
understand what I did wrong by saying I don't know you.
Got it.
Well, once again, we're kind of massaging the words. You said we never talked. I know nothing about him. I don't know him. When we had talked, and then you went and changed the statement and said, "Oh no,
You gotta pull it up.
Okay,
Come on, you gotta pull it up now.
We can't. I don't have it on me. I didn't know I was coming in. You said it wasn't a deal.
We can do it. Yeah, but you brought it up, but that's fine.
You brought it up. You wanted to litigate the beef. I'm happy to do it. I don't have the receipts prepared, but we could do it.
Litigate the beef.
I do not know Nick Fuentes. I don't know you, but you already know that. What I do know is that everyone can see what you guys are doing to me. Your pattern is well established, and the world. Hold on. And the world is waking up to it. My crime is having stood up for myself against your network of snares. I'm responding to the ADL and saying I don't know you. I didn't know you.
But that's not the only statement. You said
Okay,
stuff on your
was
show
it on
and your other
Twitter?
tweets.
It was on my show.
I don't have it on me.
Okay,
If you want to come back and we can do
come back.
about
Yeah,
it.
Now, you want to come back. Now you want to come back again.
It's pre-recorded, so I'm just going to say, if you do go home and find a clip of me saying something that you believe was lying, then I'm happy to share it because I don't lie to people. It's just not something that's in my DNA. I'd rather just tell the truth and deal with the consequences. So I had two separate communications with you before I got fired, and they were limited to us discussing parlor, us discussing Ye. Do you think that's a fair assessment of
Yes.
Okay. Fine, done. Okay, fact-checking Fuentes, because we told him, obviously, that he could send us anything in post, we would drop it in. He said that I denied that I had contact with him. This is the proof that he sent us right here. You can see that I tweeted on November 25th, 2022. I tweeted, I have never in my life been in contact with Milo Yiannopoulos or Nick Fuentes. This is not a personal shot at either of them. That is simply the truth. I met Milo twice, both times, at David Harwood's Freedom Center, where we were both invited as speakers.
Wait. Come on. Oh, Lord. And you wonder why I say she a grifter and a liar. I don't think she's self-aware. I don't think she's that intelligent. How do you, at the beginning, say, I've never in my life been in contact with Milo Yiannopoulos, and then say, I met Milo twice? Nigga. No child left behind. W got to pay for his crimes. Come on. Oh my God. I never had sex before, but I know what it feels like. Huh? I've never had sex before, but I've given head twice. What the hell? I don't know what apple juice tastes like, but I've eaten apples before. What? And again, y'all wonder why I call her a liar. I tell you, she's not right. She just be writing shit. This just proves she would just be writing shit online just to write it. You met Milo twice, but you never in your life been in contact with him. Oh, let me guess. You're gonna say you didn't call him on the phone. We don't exchange emails. You were in contact with him. You were in physical contact with this man. You were backstage in the green room with this man.
Out of either of them, that is simply the truth. I met Milo twice, both times at David Harwood's Freedom Center, where we were.
It's not that most people in the world are stupid. It's most people want to belong to something. Most people in the world are directionless. They just want to feel a part of something. That's why they buy those blue checks on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, just so they can get their tweets highlighted at the top so people will see them. It's just like having the loudest voice in the room. You want everybody to pay attention to you.
Both invited as speakers years ago. As Nick insinuated, this was technically not true because I did have public contact with Nick that then kind of built into a private correspondence.
What do you think about the judges who have been reprimanded for overstepping their jurisdiction? I'll say it like this. Trump appointed what he's getting. Why wouldn't a judge overstep their bounds? They do it all the time. We've watched judges in the past deny plea agreements. You've watched all these administrations skirt the law and no consequences. Why wouldn't a judge think I could overstep within the bounds of law? I can overstep. And if you're going to remove them, just go remove them. They're not doing it. They say they're going to do it. They're not going to do it. Because they're looking at the long game. They know they're going to get screwed later. They got to make sure that that person can't come back and hurt them. You can hold them accountable. That's fine. Are you going to win that? That's the question. Because I'm sure when they were in agreement with you, it was never a problem. Now they're not in agreement with you. Now you want them removed? It doesn't sound very smart. But again, Amy Coney Barrett was the perfect example. They loved her when she got confirmed, and then she had a couple decisions that went against Trump. And then they were talking about she need to get thrown out. She's DEI. Now all of a sudden, Trump comes outside and says, you know, she's great because she sided with him on something, and no more talk. All the talk shifts now to Ketanji Brown Jackson.
which is goes to what I did on my show yesterday about how MAGA hates women in themselves. But let's continue with this.
I'll read it to you. This is what I tweeted publicly. I tweeted, "This isn't true," responding to Nick, who was tweeting something about Parler, which my husband was the CEO of Parler, so I was defending my husband. I said, "This is not true. Apple was under serious pressure, which is why they reinstated the app. This is a victory, short term though, in my opinion, if they don't sue Apple," referring to Parler again. I'm just out here.
And then he never, by the way, screenshot number 4, he never sued Parler, and that app went dead. Yeah.
defending my husband's honor. But to Nick's credit, I then, that right after, sent this to him via DM, a private correspondence, basically just, again, talking about Parler and saying that I couldn't say anything just yet. And that was our correspondence that we had that I truly did not remember. You can see it's dated April 19th, 2021. So I was sincere when I said I didn't have any contact with Nick in 2022, but I did forget this correspondence. So back to the conversation.
You did forget.
But going on to the broader point I wanted to make, I'm glad we went through that because I think that there's been a lot of people on the internet that have said things that are not true. So that is the basis of the communications that we had. And the whole, but I was very aware of, obviously, like all of the Groyper shooting when I got fired. Genuinely didn't know what the Groyper movement was outside of seeing you guys kind of pop up on college campuses and begin to ask some questions that I actually thought were very fair. And the questions that I hadn't considered. You know, why was I, when I was working at Turning Point USA, touring with Dave Rubin, who is a homosexual...
Hold on. Here we go. We're going to go back to regular speed. I want y'all to hear this.
Fired. Genuinely didn't know what the Groyper movement was outside of seeing you guys kind of pop up on college campuses and begin to ask some questions that I actually thought were very fair.
Partly, Parler was taken down by servers. Partly. But it was mostly taken down by people on the left that were saying that they were harboring too many extreme white supremacists. And they were mad at the fact that before Elon took over, it was gaining a lot of traction. Low key, without Parler, there's no Truth Social. They didn't like the fact that a whole bunch of celebrities started going over there. So they started saying all they do is platform white supremacists. And they pressured Apple and Google to take the app down. And then Apple put it back up after a few months, but the damage was already done. People already left. And then you start hearing rumblings of Elon getting ready to buy X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And here we are now.
And the questions that I hadn't considered, you know, why was I, when I was working at Turning Point USA, touring with Dave Rubin, who is a homosexual married man? Can you talk about, first and foremost, what a Groyper is and how the movement got started?
Well, it got started in 2019 when Charlie Kirk was doing his first big college tour. And I forget actually the first one. I think it was in Colorado. And a couple of fans of my show, I didn't tell them to do this. Actually, people had asked me before, should we do this? Is this a good idea? And I said, no, I don't think so. But two guys who watched the show, they went out on their own. And I think the one guy asked a question about legal immigration. You're against illegal, but you're for legal immigration. How's that conservative? And then another guy came up and he said something about Israel. You know, you seem to be Israel first. What about America? And the two clips blew up on Twitter. And I promoted them on my show. I said, that was unbelievable. That was really awesome. I said, because, you know, if we show up in MAGA hats and rosaries, who we are, you know, which is Trump, pro-Trump Catholics, and we present as a real right wing, this is unignorable. And people will start to ask these questions. So the following day, he did another event, I think, in Iowa. Once again, there were a couple of Groypers asking these types of questions. Then the third day in New Hampshire, same story. And I remember doing a show covering the latest batch of clips. It turned into a thing. You're covering them on the show every night, the clips of these questions. And at that time, Groyper was a meme. It was like Pepe the Frog. And there's a few variations. There's Pepe, Marv, Apu, and Groyper was one of them. And Groyper's like a big cartoon frog.
Why is it named Groyper?
I don't know.
I literally don't know what Groyper means.
He came from a Twitter account called That Groyper. He just named it Groyper.
Okay, so it just doesn't mean anything.
No, yeah, it was technically called Easter Toad, supposed to be drawings, the proprietary drawing. But then some Twitter users started calling it Groyper. And at that time, you know, people would personalize the Groypers and make them an avatar. So, you know, they'd have different themes and different personalities. And Groyper became synonymous with like a far right, like retard. Like Groyper was like
He said it.
this guy, different themes and different personalities, and Groyper became synonymous with like a far right, like retard. Like Groyper was like this guy is painfully, obnoxiously far right. Groyper became synonymous with like a far right, like retard. Like
He said it. A groiper is a far right R word. Okay, thanks. We're gonna use that whenever we discuss you, frog face idiots.
Groyper was like, this guy is painfully, obnoxiously far right.
Okay.
And so I said on my show, imagine you're Charlie Kirk.
So Nick, by your own logic, that means since you're far right, you're R word. Good to know. You let them talk long enough, they expose themselves.
You're standing up there on the stage sweating, and you have a line of Groypers asking you questions about the USS Liberty and dancing Israelis. I said, what must be going through his head? And ever since then, they took the Groyper standing upright, because the famous picture is he's sitting down like this. So they took a picture of the Groyper standing upright, and there was a meme at the time of Alex Jones walking down an alleyway. And they copy-pasted a bunch of Alex Jones. They said it was an army of Alex Jones. And so someone took that meme and they did it with Groypers. They had an army of Groypers marching down the alley. And I said, that's us. That's the Groypers lining up to ask Charlie Kirk a question. So that's the origin of the name.
Okay, interesting.
So it's not even yours.
What Groyper actually mean, and
So it's not even yours. Part 11 of the grift. Take somebody's established idea and try to pawn it off as your own. Case in point, Miss Self-Hating Black here took the concept of the Stanley Cup, found the generic version, and then said it's a Standis Cup. Yeah. All right. There you go.
so it's a lot of people that have these anonymous accounts, and like I said, we'll show a clip of it, but I thought it was very interesting because it was, I guess, questions that I hadn't really grappled with, which is, I'm on stage, I'm saying that I'm a Christian, and yet I'm touring with somebody who is a homosexual married man. How do I reconcile that? And
It didn't fail
rather than
miserably.
kind of
She
getting
just
the
only made a
answer,
certain
I think I
amount.
particularly remember one clip with, what is his name? I'm totally blanking here.
Because you're not bright.
Black Army vet. I know his name.
Smith.
Rob Smith. It was the moment with Rob Smith, and I think somebody shouted down the person and said,
No, they
that
didn't.
They were homophobic. Like the question is homophobic, and at that moment I went, yeah, you can't do that. You got to actually answer the question. There could be an answer, but we can't be like Willette and just calling people names because we don't maybe want to confront that there is some substance to this question. Mm-hmm. But then you guys kind of, or maybe it sounds like it did start as an online movement. Who are the Groypers behind the scenes? Do you have
Losers.
these people?
Remember, he said
Obviously,
retards.
they're real human beings. My point is that, like, is this movement, like, you guys are on a group chat and you know these individuals? Can we get a demographic? Are they older? Are they younger? Who are the Groypers?
Well, they are real human beings. They're all young white men. Or there's other men too. I mean, some of them are Hispanic, some of them are black, some of them are Jewish for that matter. But they're mostly young men, college age, Generation Z. Some of them even high school aged, and all of them very Christian, very Catholic also. They're fans of the show, you know. A lot.
And there we go. So according to Nick, the Groyper movement is Catholic. And if you know anything about the Catholic religion, we're going to keep going.
A lot of people say I have this cult-like following. People watch the show and they adopt the political viewpoint, the religious viewpoint, and so they're basically far-right, pro-America, Catholic, at that time, big Trump supporters, and young guys.
All right, we have to watch another Nick Fuentes clip. I think we should definitely watch. Let's watch the first one that you showed me, Skylar.
Why is it that Candace Owens will interview Harvey Weinstein before she'll talk to me? So true. Am I really that?
Easy answer, because he's gonna give her more visibility than you, sir. I thought this was established, but okay, maybe you didn't know.
Agree with yourself.
People said when Candace Owens split with Daily Wire, people begged her to do a collaboration with me. They said, talk to Nick Fuentes. You stole all his talking points. Talk to Nick Fuentes. You get all your ideas from him, all your slogans. He was a martyr. He made the sacrifices that made it popular for you to do this. She said, oh, I can't because I'm on YouTube. But I also can't have him on my website because of some lawsuit.
That's so crappy to me. That part's really crappy to me. I have to say, watching it back, no, I do want to say, we don't have to get into it, but that's crappy to me because it was like, I don't know, I just think that I try to do a really good job of being a human being offline, you know what I mean? And if people are going through stuff or whatever, and that was real, like that's not like, oh my God, like she's trying to be a victim. It was very real. My life was kind of, you saw, it was thrown up in the air, but we don't need to focus on that. But I do want to get to the point.
So because you had a lawsuit with the Daily Wire, you didn't want to bring him on. You could have literally not asked him anything about Daily Wire, and anything he said about Daily Wire, you could have edited out. Okay.
Do you actually believe that I was getting all my ideas from you? Like, do you actually believe that I was watching Cozy TV? Because then somebody showed me a clip of you saying the same thing. Because I guess you said in the same week, or you said last week, I was talking about this. Now this week, Candace was talking about it, and it was pertaining to the PBS documentary, The Savage Peace, which was about the German genocide that took place after the war had ended, and that documentary opened up my eyes a lot to the fact that we had only been told kind of one strand regarding World War II. And I told my audience they should watch it, and there was a clip of you kind of suggesting that I got that from you. So did you actually believe that I had gotten that from you, or that I was watching your show and stealing your ideas?
Not that one. I don't know what that's all about.
Okay.
The German thing, but look, I mean, you left Daily Wire with the whole Christ is King, America First. For years, that's what I was known for. Now, if you want to say you never heard of me until a couple of years ago,
Well, I heard of you in 2019.
You said earlier though that you didn't really watch anything or know anything until about a year ago. If that's what you say, okay, that's fine. But it'd be a pretty stunning coincidence. And I will say, I heard from other people. I'm not going to say who, but I heard from a mutual friend. He watched my show back in 2020. Maybe that person's lying. I don't know that, but I heard that from multiple people. So.
You can name the person, because I'm telling you, so, and I'll ask you this question again. So you said Christ is king. So that's very interesting. Mm-hmm. So you think that any person that says Christ is king?
Oh no, I didn't say that.
Okay, so I actually do want to understand this. I'm genuinely pushing back here, because I was very confused by this. I'm like, Ye just named his whole album Jesus is King, right? Or 2 albums ago, was Jesus is King. It was definitely a moment, a cultural zeitgeist, to have this rapper to come out and start singing about Christ like he did early on. He said when he did the Jesus Walk stuff, and I was just like, does Nick actually believe? Like, I genuinely was not watching your show. It's the only thing I can tell you. Okay. I have friends that were. I will definitely say, men between the ages of like 30 and 40 are watching your show. And I would say 40 and beyond, like I just said, are watching your show. I would imagine you have a very male, internet savvy audience. I am terrible at the internet. Like, I mean, it is embarrassing. I'm basically a grandma when it comes to the internet.
Why does she lie like this? So either she's saying she's terrible at the internet, or she got a great team around her that's finding all this shit. So that means you're not running your social media. Okay. And again, people still want to know why I call her a liar.
My husband thinks it's. He's like, how are you a person that people watching the internet, you don't even know how to use it? I just don't love tech. Tech is not really my thing. I like to communicate. I'm a woman. I like to
You don't love tech.
Really like
Wait a minute. She don't love tech, yet she was doxing people, which requires tech. I see what she's doing. She's trying to revert into this old school Catholic. in the second half of her life, and she figures it's probably going to work if she says it enough times. I get it. I get it.
Stuff works. And so once you got banned, I just didn't see, I wouldn't have seen your stuff. But then as soon as you were back on Twitter, I started seeing your clips all the time because you started trending. Like
Right.
you were trending the day that you got let back onto X.
Oh
You were
my
trending. And I
God!
was like, okay,
You
he's
could
trending.
literally
But
find
you
his
recently
clips
just were trending about
while he
you.
was
So I
not
think if
on
you had been on
X.
X that whole time, and you said, you're like, you've never seen my stuff, that would be a little ridiculous. But genuinely, like when you're starting a family, and like as soon as I'm done with the podcast, it got to be like straight back into mommy mode. It's just, I just don't think that many women are watching you. Is that fair?
I'm go leader. That's not hard. A lot of Latin people identify with Nazis. It's not hard. Argentina was full of them. Chile was full of them after the war. They all ran to South America.
Yeah, like I said, if that's what you're saying, then yeah, I believe you.
100% the truth. Genuinely didn't get any of my ideas from you, and then was being accused of getting all of my ideas from you. So obviously there must have been naturally something that was happening where what I was saying or what I was noticing, people were going, oh, Nick Fuentes has spoken about this already.
Well, I mean, those were like things that I was known for when we would disrupt Turning Point, which is where you worked at, or Daily
I
Wire.
saw the Groyper stuff.
But you also worked there. They would go in chanting Christ is King, and they were the Groypers. And if you were aware of the Groyper War and Ye 24 and me on Twitter last year,
I saw the literal clips of them asking questions that were going viral.
Okay.
They weren't chanting Christ is King. They were just the literal clips of them. And I thought it was smart. It made me challenge some of my ideas. So I will give you credit where credit is due, or the students that were asking those questions, credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times conservatives, we say things and we say them because everyone else is doing it. Same thing with the reason I think.
Still want to tell me what I said earlier, how she's trying to grift back to the left? Now she's saying conservatives are parrots? This rebrand is going to be generational.
Both of us started as being pro-Israel. It just was everybody else is doing it. It feels good. You are kind of young and excited about the ideas, and then you kind of go, oh wait, something's wrong. And both of us kind of dealt with this punch in the face.
Right. Yeah, well, I was 18. You know what I'm saying? I was 18. So, you know, I don't know that I was doing it because everybody else was doing it. I was doing it because that was just the first thing I read. Because that was the stuff that was out there. And then, yeah, I mean, and then you went through it. I mean, and hey, and likewise, credit where it's due. You know, maybe I've been unfair to you. I don't know you. You know, and like you said, we talked once and twice.
We finally got there.
No, but it's true. And this is the first time I've met you, and I don't know you, so, and I'm willing to admit if I'm wrong. You know, maybe I've been unfair to you. But for what it's worth, they did put you through the ringer. And I don't even need to tell you that. You know it, and everyone knows it. And it sucks.
I actually thought you were a Fed at one point.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's it.
Another thing she heard conservatives say, Nick Fuentes is a Fed. Okay.
They're going, this makes no sense. I literally just am being punched in the face 1,000 times. Everyone's coming after me. What did I do? I tweet the hashtag Christ is King, and like my whole life is over. And now I kind of understand that it was because people were watching your show and they were.
Oh God, no, that's not why. Don't do that. Now she's trying to blame him for that. Ma'am, you were doing that way before that. Don't do that. You just gave yourself a plausible out, and you're trying to jump back into there so you can get more attention. Stop that. When you grifted over into Roman Catholicism, you started saying Christ is King. Don't do that. That's why I keep man, this bitch is such a... Oh, boy. We all know Christians and Catholics say Christ is King all the motherfucking time. King of Kings, Lord of Lords. You're not finna do that. You tried to start some bullshit wave and it didn't work. Because nobody was interested in what you were saying, because by then you were already knee deep in goddamn Israel. So cut it out.
Right.
And truly, speaking of just be ignorant, it's just like I said, it's not female content. I did not just try to look like all the moms are lining up and watching it.
Oh, of course, she got to make a smoothie now. All right.
Fuentes.
Some moms love
Some
me,
moms
okay?
love you,
There's
I'm
some
sure,
moms that
but
love
as
the
a
show.
rule, I
Yes,
don't think
I agree.
that we're watching your show. And so I think it was kind of this thing that they definitively believe that there was some sort of coordination going on between
Right.
you and I.
No, there
but
wasn't.
it was it sucked. I'm not gonna lie. It was not an easy year last year. And so when on top of that you start telling people to attack me,
I didn't really tell people to attack
okay,
you.
fair. I might be misquoting there, but like they got the idea that they should start attacking me. I was like, okay, this guy must be working with the ADL. The ADL had just attacked me, and then it was like 2 weeks later.
The
you're attacking me.
ADL. So now she's gonna bring this back up. Now we're gonna have to go be endured with the ADL going after Candace Owens again. The ADL is irrelevant right now. And it sucks that they're irrelevant because they could be getting millions of dollars off an Israel grift and they can't even get any traction. MSNBC ain't even asking Jonathan Greenblatt to come on TV no more. This is sad. She's trying to resurrect the ADL so she could have an enemy. Because her Twitter is dry right now. Damn.
And people that watch the show are attacking me. I'm just going, what the heck
She's not the American Defense League. She's talking about the Anti-Defamation League.
is going on in my life right now? Again, when you're in the moment, you can kind of believe something to be true, but I definitely thought that you maybe were like a total fed.
Yeah, I heard that you heard that from Tucker. Is that true?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, because I heard that and...
Oh, he had a whole lot of questioning to get at her so he could indirectly take shots at Tucker Carlson, and she shut that down real quick. She's like, no, I ain't get that from him. He's like, fuck.
Thought that you maybe were like a total fed.
Yeah, I heard that you heard that from Tucker. Is that true?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, because I heard that.
A lot of people, by the way, have asked that question, like, is he a fed? But I did not hear from Tucker, like, Nick Fuentes is definitely a
Well,
fed.
Tucker is pushing that around. It's like a whisper campaign. He said that to Alex Jones. He said that to a lot of people, so...
Well, I thought I said it to people because I was definitely saying, like, he's got to be fed because what is he doing?
That was part of why I was, in particular, a little upset towards the middle of the beef last year.
Fair, but I really did believe it.
Yeah.
I was just, it didn't make sense to me. I'm like, what am I doing that everybody everywhere is upset with me?
Well, and I think suffice to say, unfortunately in this space...
Being a coon. As much as these people love to tell you that they are about content and character, not skin color, they know when you're being disingenuous. See, they were allowing you to be disingenuous when you were on their side peddling their bullshit. Now that you're not doing it no more, now they're calling everything out you doing disingenuous. So either you grifting and they recognized it and let it pass, or they stand for nothing and they just want to be part of something, like I said before.
There is a lot of distrust, I think, on both sides,
Yeah.
because there's so much deception
Mm-hmm.
and so much intimidation and bullying and
Mm-hmm.
these shady tactics that, you know, when you don't know everybody, you really don't know what to make of everybody else. You know,
That's called vetting.
Quantity to you. I come from a different world. I'm a young man. I'm on the political outside. I'm on Cozy TV. You're an unknown to me. You're in the belly.
You're a lie. Because according to your audience, you're in the know. Somebody in here earlier said that he's known in politics just because people yell his name out. I didn't know that.
Not that he did work that's recognizable. Is people are yelling his name out in memes. That's being known in politics. Okay. All right.
The Beast at Turning Point and Daily Wire. And I don't mean
And
that
here's
to
the
cast
asshole
aspersions, but
right
just to
there.
say we're coming at each other from completely different worlds. And
I thought you were
in my
leaving.
world, you're sort of leaving that world and coming to these views. And I think there's sort of a mutual distrust and maybe misunderstanding, which is why it's good to sit down and chat. You know?
Yeah, well, and by the way, you can say whatever you want on your show, but I would just encourage you to like maybe sometimes think people are just not where you're at sometimes, and I have to check myself at times. And I think
No,
having the
I'm in
exercise.
the future.
Okay, you're with Yay in the future. Yay somewhere in the future.
I'm 5 years ahead.
Okay, so let me ask you some of these questions. So, you do have ideas that there shouldn't be interracial marriage.
Mhm.
I've seen those clips. Can you explain why that is?
Yeah, it's not that I don't think there should be interracial marriage. I'm Catholic, so as you know, it's not a sin to be in an interracial marriage or relationship. But I am racist, I would say. I believe in the races.
Oh my god. Oh my god. He can't be serious right now. He really about to self-hate. Let's go. I need this. Two self-haters. They met up and they're about to trade self-hate stories. This is gonna be great. His whole family, his whole existence is built on interracial marriage, but now he's gonna be a racist about it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
As you know, it's not a sin.
Because you're
to be
Catholic.
in an interracial marriage or relationship. But I am racist, I would say. I believe in the races. I believe there are white people and black people and Hispanic.
Dude, they're not gonna let you go down on them. Calm down.
And Asians, and I think that it's a core part of our identity. It's who we are. And there's like this conservative reflex to say, we're colorblind. Race doesn't mean anything. And, you know, Pat Buchanan said this. He said, it's not everything, but it isn't nothing. And I definitely lean more towards the latter, which is it really is a core part of who we are. Our culture, our heritage, our ancestors, our customs, all of it. You know, it's not that I don't think that two people can fall in love from different races. Of course they can.
Right.
They have throughout history, and the races have mixed throughout history and assimilated. But for someone like myself, I always say on my show, it's just my value. I want to marry someone that looks like me, that comes from a similar background, because I want my kids to look like me.
So you want a white Hispanic mix? They're out there. You gotta find them. By the way, screenshot number 5. Sir, by your logic, you need to marry a biracial that looks white. They're still biracial. They're still bi-ethnic. Okay.
I want my grandkids to look like me.
But are you, sorry, I just want to make sure, did you say I'm a racialist or I'm a racist?
You know, for a long time I would say I'm racialist. Now I just say I'm racist.
Okay.
But they cool with that. Just realize they cool with that. We went from a nationalist to a racist. Okay.
So when you say you're racist, because these definitions get changed around, racist, you know, anti-Semitism gets expanded. What do you mean when you say I'm a racist? Because
this is the same man that said that he doesn't hate everybody, but he a racist. Okay.
Are you going to work today?
Yes.
I think most people watching this would go, if you are a racist,
Right.
in the traditional sense of the term, why are you on this podcast, right? Wouldn't you just go, you know what, Candace is black, and therefore I don't want to speak to her?
No, because racists have gone on platforms with people opposite of their race and had conversations. It's for visibility and to get their ideas out there.
Right.
Certainly not going onto your show and saying, why won't Candace have me on? That doesn't really seem to line up with the traditional sense of the idea of racist, so.
Yeah, and I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek. I mean, for the purpose of understanding, I'd say my views are I'm a racialist. But I do think that we need to deconstruct this idea of racism in the sense that, you know, look, you're black, I'm white, it is what it is. For my entire life, people have been walking around in eggshells about the subject of race.
Oh my God, no, they didn't. Don't do that, sir. I tell you, the people are lying. Don't do that. There was race all through the 2000s. Don't do that, sir. Soon as Obama got in, the late 2000s and the early 2010s, it was all about race. You not finna do that. You watch Trump's rallies. You said it. You saw when they escorted that black guy out and they were beating him up on the way out. You're not going to start saying this ain't about race. You watch the entire right go after Kamala Harris because she mixed race, allegedly. We're not going to do that. Not today. Damn, I swear these rebrandings, boy. Again, these rebrandings are going to be generational.
White people being racist. Can I say this? Can I say that? Can I have this opinion? And me, I'm sort of, Gavin McInnes said it like this. He said, you're kind of post-racist. You're sort of after this craze where everything was racist.
Oh my
it's sort of
God.
this recognition that we live in a heavily racial world. And, look, sometimes we have racist feelings. Racist feelings like, I want to live in a white neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I don't
Great.
want to live in a black neighborhood.
Great, go do it. Nobody's telling you not to go do it. Shut up about everybody else. Damn. Gold Leader, we covered that on this channel too. That's why I said allegedly. Because some people still think that she's black. They went there and changed her goddamn Wikipedia page to say Afro, to say Afro Jamaican, where they said Indo Jamaican.
For all like you, obviously it'd be a different story. But when we think of a black neighborhood, we know what that means. And
What does that mean, sir?
That's Black American.
What? Here we go. Hey, Black Americans, you better pay attention to what she's about to say. What's wrong, sir? We can show you plenty of white neighborhoods that are in the toilet. We're not going to do that. That one we're not going to do. And by the way, the Siamese coons already admitted that they live in a white neighborhood and they got their car broken into. So I guess white neighborhoods are not always safe. I'm down here in Atlanta, Buckhead, they over there complaining. They're nice white area. They're complaining that all the crime is up there. And it ain't always us doing it. But all right, we're going to play this stereotype that white neighborhoods are the safest. Okay. All right.
Like, I want to live in a white neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I don't want to live in a black neighborhood. They're all like you, obviously it'd be a different story. But when we think of a black neighborhood, we know what that means and why the property value.
But that's Black Americans. This is why I want to.
There you go. See? Y'all saw that, right? You see how she had to separate out the Caribbeans and the Africans. Ma'am, you from the New York tri-state area like me, we're not about to do that. That we're not going to do. Because you and I can go back to New York and go through South Ozone Park and Richmond Hill, and you tell me, because that's where all the Caribbeans are, and you tell me how that look any different from a black American neighborhood. Because they still got the crime over there. Springfield Gardens, Hollis, Queens. Do you want Jamaica? Do you want me and you to go do that? I think that'd be great content for your channel. You see what she did? She really about to act like Caribbean neighborhoods are not filled with crime. Do you want to go to Flatbush? Where them Haitians are? Do you want to go over there with me? I know you stayed in Stanford, so you didn't know, even though you were on the poor side of Stanford. I know you may not know this. Fine. I'll meet you in the Bronx. I don't think you want to do that. Layla, what is bold about what she's saying? There's nothing bold about that. There's nothing brave about what she's saying. She's saying it for clicks. Okay, let me prove it then. If it was so bold and so brave of what she said, why did she take down her tweets when she was getting at Christina Applegate? And Christina Applegate, who was sitting in a wheelchair at the time, was cooking her. If she's so bold and so brave. The same chick that y'all sitting here praising months ago said that she wishes she was Nigerian. That's brave and bold? That sounds like self-hate to me. Yes, ma'am. We've covered her stuff on this channel. Yeah. There's nothing that she says that's brave or bold. You're really telling me saying that somebody's wife is a man is brave and bold? Really? That's brave. Okay. Okay. Yeah, y'all's definition of brave and bold needs an upgrade.
I don't understand this idea better because, and this is kind of.
Yes, I've
something my
covered
cousin has
Zohan
said.
Mandani. Yes, we did that. Yes, we have.
Which I guess you could say is a racist statement, but she says that white people in America are the white trash of white people in the world. Like there's a special kind of something my cousin has said, which I guess you could say is a racist statement, but she says that white people in America are the white trash of white people in the world. Like there's a special category of uniquely that you don't see when you're dealing with like white Americans here, that if you went across to, like Switzerland, you wouldn't see this version of a white person necessarily, or this, you maybe went to the continent of Africa, you don't see this version of a black person either. Like even if you went to like to the tribes out in Africa that still exist.
She really still doesn't understand the concept of ethnogenesis. Ma'am, the white Americans over here are not the British people. They're not the Italians. They're not the Irish. They're not the Nordics. People move somewhere and change. You guys are trying to connect everything back to them other continents. It doesn't work. Go to LA and tell the Mexicans over there that they're Spaniards and see if you really gonna get a conversation with them.
They would be a far cry from a black American living in a neighborhood in Compton, right? So I'm trying to understand if you're actually, you think that it's
Compton.
all black people are like this, or if your world
Compton.
is kind of colored by this is what's going on.
Compton ain't even black no
this
more.
This has failed for 1,000 reasons. Welfarism has definitely.
Compton.
I mean, black people in 1940s stand up. My grandfather, I talk about that in a.
How is it brave and bold if so if the people know that, how is that brave and bold? Okay, Layla, let me help you. To be brave and bold is to expose something that people have never heard of. That's brave and bold. I'll give you a perfect example. If I was going to be brave and bold, something like me exposing that Caitlin Clark, the basketball player, has racist text messages from high school, that would be brave and bold because I would understand me putting that out. One, I'm going to get questioned on it. Number two, I'm going to get a slew of hate on it. If you just told us that the country of France knows that that woman's a man, how is that brave and bold for her to say it? It's already out there. That's like me saying, okay, I think 9/11 was an inside job. That's not brave and bold to say. It's already out there. She's done or said nothing yet on her platform that is brave and bold.
And the corrosion of culture. That's happening. White, black, whatever you want to name it, there is this intentional corrosion of culture. So do you think it's literally, well, this is just what a black person is when they come out? Or do you think that post welfare, LBJ, Great Society, this is what black Americans have become, and I have a right to respond to that and say that as a white man, I don't want to live there?
Well, I think it's more nature than people would like to
Oh,
believe.
Lord.
There's this classic tension of, is it nature, is it nurture, is it cultural, or is it intrinsic?
Yeah, it's because y'all say women are the first teachers, so yeah, y'all like to blame the women for everything. So by your logic, the reason why white people are the way they are is because of their mothers, right? Since we're gonna keep it even across the board, right? Y'all like fiery Latinas, right? They don't come from their fathers being fiery; they get it from their mothers. The docile Asian comes from the mother, right? So it sounds like it would be nature and nurture, your environment, and who's raising you. Y'all love to say that the reason black people are violent is because they're raised by their mothers. Okay. The reason why there's decline in birth rates is because of what? Y'all love to say it's the only fan culture. Who's running that? Women. But according to Nick, it's the Jews running that. But, it's something else. But all right.
Is it racial? And I've always been on the latter side of this among
It was
conservatives.
Telegram.
Conservatives like to say it's all culture. Black
No,
America
it was
is the way
Signal.
it is because of hip-hop music and the Great Society and that kind of stuff. And I think the uncomfortable reality is a big part of it is intrinsic. One of the big arguments against the abolition of slavery in the 1860s is that, when Europeans colonized Africa, they hadn't discovered the wheel. There's no two-story buildings.
Oh, Jesus Christ. We're doing this again. Oh, Lord. Okay. You mean this? Okay, Nick, you mean the same Africa that Europe went over to trade with, including people and gold and all that? You're right. Just because they didn't have two-story buildings, that didn't. Oh, since we want to play that game, Nick, you want to go and teach your crowd about wind scale, because London and the UK would not be what it is without the labor that they got from Africa and the Caribbean. It's funny that they couldn't build it at home, but you're saying that they built it over there. That's that. Yeah, they were just in mud huts all day, but they figured out how to have golden riches there. Mud huts. Okay, got it. This is the new conservative lie they're pushing, new far right lie they're pushing. By the way, screenshot number 6, because that's how he looks on the daily.
There's no writing. There's no written language. Missionaries had to go to Africa in the last century and invent it for the African people because there's no recorded history. They didn't have writing.
So Egypt is not in Africa.
Well, Egypt is a different race. The Egyptians were not black.
Okay, but
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Now we're going to do the Persians. Here we go. Okay. Now Nick is going to tell us, this anthropologist here is going to tell us that there was no black people in Egypt. Okay. Go ahead. This should be fun.
So when they went to Africa. So I just want
To
to.
the interior of Africa in the late 19th century. Scrambled
Okay,
for
so
Africa.
we're now knocking Egypt out of Africa.
Well, Egypt is part of northern Africa,
Right, so
sub-Saharan
it's Africa.
Africa.
You said Africa, so I'm not trying to get a gotcha. I'm just responding. You're saying
Okay, sure.
Africa.
Yeah.
It's in Africa. It's Egypt. It's kind of ridiculous that there was no written language.
Well,
so I'm just trying to get you to.
Sure.
We get it. Cleopatra wasn't dark. We get it, Nick. That's really that's the hypothesis of you saying that. We get it.
Egyptians are not
If
African.
I'm not pushing back, the internet will. So
Egyptians are not
racial
Africans.
Africans. When I say African, I'm saying sub-Saharan Africans.
Sub-Saharan. Okay,
Black
say that.
people.
That's called an adjective, you idiot. Sub-Saharan is an adjective. Oh my God. I see why they recruited him. I was gonna say the G word, but I'm gonna be nice. I see why they recruited him at 17. I said months ago that they love preying on the youth. When I was talking about Noah DeBrasso and Roland Martin, they love preying on the youth. They know y'all are dumb.
Yeah, because it is a different race. In sub-Saharan Africa, and Europeans did not penetrate that until late 19th century. They didn't have any of this. To the extent that you have infrastructure in Africa
What?
from the Muslims in the Sahel, in the Maghreb, in northern Africa.
What did you just say?
Responding, you're saying
Okay,
Africa.
sure. Yeah.
It's in Africa. It's Egypt. It's kind of ridiculous that there was no written language.
Well,
so I'm just trying to get you to
Sure. Egyptians are not African.
I'm not pushing back. The internet will. So
Egyptians are not racial Africans. When I say African, I'm saying
What the hell? They're not racial Africans. Race wasn't back then. Oh my God. Wait a minute. I thought it was established that race was a social construct that came out of Europe. Why would they have it in Africa when they weren't even really playing with Europe like that? What? Oh no.
Saharan, okay.
black people that, yeah, because it is a different race. In sub-Saharan Africa, and Europeans did not penetrate that until late 19th century.
How did he just lie like that? So how'd they get the slaves, Nick, if they didn't penetrate sub-Saharan Africa before the late 19th century? The first ship landed here in Jamestown in 1619. Oh my God. He can't be serious. He can't be serious.
Sorry.
This is who y'all told me that would smoke me in a debate? GIK, this is who you told me. Screenshot number 7. Because I think he just realized what he said. How did black people get to America if they never penetrated sub-Saharan Africa? That's including what's known now as Nigeria and the Ivory Coast and Benin.
That was on the 14th.
How did they fight the Dahomey if they didn't penetrate into the late 18th century? Oh my Lord. Oh God. Okay. Okay, Nick.
They didn't have any of this. To the extent that you have infrastructure in Africa from the Muslims in the Sahel and the Maghreb in northern Africa, where the Arabs colonized, and then you had, Carthage and Egypt. You had ancient civilization.
So we're just gonna ignore the Moors. Okay. Good. We're gonna ignore the Moors. You don't want to bring them up. All right.
But sub-Saharan Africa, they didn't have that. You take these people out of there, and put them here, and they're enslaved people. You let them free in a modern, liberal republic. They're not going to succeed. It's not going to go.
How were they free how was America modern in 1865? How? Oh no, here we go. Here we go. Now America was modern in 1865. Okay, keep going. Let's go.
Well for them. And that was one of the arguments against abolition. People said if you free them without any assimilation, without any kind of process for them to be acclimated, they're going to die. And that's exactly what happened. Many of the bottom 10% of the lowest IQ Africans just died off for generations. And it had a...
Who is giving him this knowledge? Oh Lord. Keep going, Nick.
Pardon the expression, but it had a eugenic effect because over time, if the weakest are dying off, that's one argument for why blacks in America have a standard deviation higher IQ than the blacks in sub-Saharan Africa. So,
What? Oh my God. Who mans is this? Oh man, you frog-faced idiots. This is who you follow?
so I do think there is something intrinsic going on there. And what makes people uncomfortable about this is the idea that it's unchangeable. There's something about, and this is why I'm a Catholic, we do have an inherent desire for universalism. we do believe that there's a common humanity and a common human community and all of that. We hate the idea.
Right, right. The same Catholics who go to West Africa and subjugate the people, right? Them. Okay, got it. Because I mean, we could bring up Cameroon and all that just as an example. But okay, Nick, got it. We're gonna play. We're gonna play Catholic good now. Okay, all right.
That we're born a certain way and we can never change, and that's just the way it is. And we even think about this in terms of, it's become not so popular these days to tell children you can be whatever you want to be. Because we know that's not the case.
What?
Some people are tall, some people are short, some people are smart, some dumb, some ugly, some handsome. That's why, by the way, incel dumb is a big part of this also.
So you believe these are immutable characteristics that are assigned at birth?
I think that, yes.
For the most part.
Things like race.
Nick, you should stop talking right now. You're mixed. They already think that you're genetically inferior. Stop talking. You sound really foolish right now. You're not going to try to remix Best of Both Worlds. They think you're inferior. I don't even want to say the M word on here. Just stop.
All those attributes are immutable and unchangeable, and
But
you
they
know, we
have
to
changed,
grapple
just
with that.
factually speaking.
You said, who is
they?
they? People that follow him. Those people. These so-called white supremacists that swear up and down that they're 100% white, even though that's a damn lie. The purity whites, what they call them.
They change over time, over the generations.
Okay, so then you don't think it's immutable? Because if this was an immutable characteristic, okay, so you're saying that if you are born at this space and time as a black person in America, here is the cards that you're dealt with, and you can't change that over time.
Something like IQ does not change.
Oh my God, here we go. Now we're going to talk about IQ. Oh boy, go ahead.
It doesn't change wildly. It only changes genetically over. IQ is a big one, and that changes. That's a genetic trait.
Oh
so
my
that can change over
God.
generations, but not. You can't take an individual that's 75 IQ, which is the average in West Africa, and take them to 100.
So two dumb.
What? Wait, is he realizing what he's saying?
Like IQ does not change. Doesn't change wildly. It only changes genetically over. IQ is a big one, and
That's wild, you idiot. Oh man, this guy is dumb. Sir, you live in an era where generations span, 10 to 15 years, and they're vastly different from each other. You really about to tell us that IQ can't change within a generation? And that's not wild. Oh my Lord. He really sounds like he in favor of incest. I'm not even gonna hold you. He sounds like the Europeans over there in the UK with the royal family who are just marrying each other just to keep the bloodline pure. Bruh, he can't be serious right now. He can't be serious. Okay, Nick, so how is it, since you want to play IQ, so how is it that I'm gonna have to go to media for this because it's an easy way for me to explain it. By your logic, right? When we saw in the Fresh Prince, you had the father that was a lawyer, the mother that was a professor, and they produced 3 kids. One that was an airhead, one that was very intelligent, and actually was like borderline. Okay, fine. Explain how on Family Matters you had a guy that just went to high school and night school to become a cop, and the mother who went through the police academy but didn't become a cop. How did they produce law? Who's getting straight A's across the board? How did that happen? And between her and her siblings is not that big of a generational gap. It's a few years. So explain that. I tell you, this boy is dumb. The boy dumb.
Changes, that's a genetic trait. So that can change over the generations, but not, you can't take an individual that's 75 IQ, which is the average in West Africa, and take them to 100.
So two dumb people can't.
Two dumb people in Africa, their kids become doctors. What? Two dumb people in Jamaica literally have someone that rises up to be prime minister. I'm not saying that Andrew Holness' parents are stupid. I'm just saying. Which is why we also said environment has a lot to do with it. Y'all the same ones always laughing at these people getting deported when they tell the stories of my parents came here with nothing and now I'm this big success. My parents didn't speak a lick of English. And that's just one generation. Damn. I tell you, Nick is retarded. But, you know, they like that. They like that low vibrational, low IQ thinking. They love that. Continue.
Produce a smart person.
I believe they can, actually. But
So does that kind of debunk your?
no, because it's rare that happens. But IQ is a heritable
It's
trait,
rare.
so it's unlikely.
Oh
that
my
happens.
God.
And do you not recognize that there's group differences in IQ?
I think that there's group differences, but I wouldn't say, and the reason why I'm pushing back on this is because those perspectives that you hold, Thomas Sowell did a really good job debunking that, and I think the book is called Intellectuals and Race, and he opens up and makes a very sound argument that these characteristics are not immutable, and that
Right. These are the same people that say that Trump is intelligent and every time he does a decision, it looks very elementary. But, okay. I guess we pick and choose who that works for, right? Okay. Go ahead.
it can be your environment, and he kind of goes back and discusses, like, who had the highest IQ and who now has the highest IQ, and so I just disagree with you fundamentally, but you have a right to have that perspective.
So you don't think that there's group differences on average between the races?
I think, just to be clear, I think there would be group differences if you took it, like we were talking about, an American versus somebody who graduates college in Europe. There'd be tremendous differences.
Not tremendous, but yeah, there would be slight differences.
Yeah.
But you
So
don't think
I
that
think
racially there's differences between races?
I think, yeah, because we have huge differences culturally. So going to your point of saying, I don't want to live in a black neighborhood, well, neither does LeBron James when he gets money, right? There's a reason for that, because there is something that's happening culturally in Black America that's going on for a very long time. But that thing, I would argue, didn't exist in...
What about in Africa and Haiti? I mean, they're killing and eating each other in Africa and Haiti, everywhere where they are. You have these problems.
Yeah, I'd like to look into, and I'm pleading ignorant, but I've heard some things about what happened in Haiti and what the Clinton Foundation did.
Man. Okay. So we're going to blame the Clintons for what's going on in Haiti. We're not going to blame France. I'm not going to blame them. We're not going to blame the West for colonizing Haiti and kidnapping kids. That's documented, by the way. We're not going to talk about that. We're not even going to talk about something recent that happened, that the CIA was involved in the overthrow of Haiti's government. I'm not going to talk about that. You want to go back to the earthquake in 2010 to blame the Clintons, when every administration, Democrat or Republican, fucked with Haiti. Okay. And this information been out there for 15 years. You're just figuring out now, maybe I should go study it. She's trying to figure out the next griff in real time right now.
There, so I think I'd have to look more into the history of Haiti to be able to push back on that at all.
Here she goes. Here she go. She gonna try to turn Dessalina Lovator into conservative heroes. Watch. 1804 is about to become a conservative cry. Watch.
Africa then. There's not one country in sub-Saharan Africa that's successful. Not one. They're all least developed countries. They're all failed states.
This kind of reminds
They're
me,
least developed.
and we could kind of
Least developed.
together and
Least developed. So South Africa is least developed. Kenya's least developed. For all their faults, Nigeria is least developed. Okay. Okay, but Morocco is least developed. Okay. So such all this least development, yet BRICS is actively in there right now when they were on the ground floor with their development investing. They had to start it themselves. Okay. All right. Whole African nation is on the governing board of BRICS, but it's not developed. I guess you're gonna say the Germans did that, right? Okay. Tell you the boy not bright, but they love him. Go ahead.
I'm not perhaps ready to have it fully, but I do remember going back to Dave Smith where he was conceding a point on, well, all of these other Middle Eastern countries, no, you wouldn't want to live there, you'd want to live in Israel. And in my mind, I'm going, because you just keep bombing the crap out of them if they ever try to get ahead. I remember watching this with him saying
people
that,
are moving to Saudi
why
Arabia.
don't these countries get ahead, and kind of going back in my mind to the Gaddafi speech where
You're right.
he was speaking essentially about, here's what we got to do in Libya to get ahead. Here's what we're going to do with the dollar, and we're going to be progressive and this and that. And they killed him. And then what happened to those Libyan refugees? Suddenly they're now pouring into, just like he said was going to happen, that they were now pouring into the European continent, and Europeans are complaining.
And whose fault was that? Come on, Candace, whose fault was that? That's right, that was Obama's fault. Yeah. Republicans were in on that too. They wanted Gaddafi out of there too. Gaddafi been a problem since the 80s. Reagan wanted to kill him. And they said, nah, the backlash would be too great because he's starting to get power. It looked too bad. Bush too wanted to kill him when he really started pushing that idea of the all-African currency and getting away from the West. But he said it would look crazy because this is when he talked to the UN and people were actually listening to him. They had to use an excuse of him doing something so they could justify going in there and killing him. And all Obama could do after the slavery started was say, I'm sorry, it had unintended consequences. Yeah. Let's not play that game. The government loves destabilizing everybody.
People. And so the question is, are we allowing, I'm like, Africa's a pretty rich country. Like, why aren't the Africans controlling the diamond trade? Who's taking all of the diamonds so that they can't control the diamond trade? And how long have these people been doing that, being essentially culture vultures? That's kind of the journey that I've been on now in terms of really trying to go back and look into history to see what's happened. Mm-hmm. And I never trust myself when I have a perspective now, because I realize how much of my opinions and beliefs were shaped by the public school system. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think you're right. I think that there has been a very...
Now we're going to blame schools. You a grown woman, you left school, you dropped out when, 22? No, public schools. So you left at 18. You going to tell me now you about to be 36 soon. You going to tell me now all of a sudden, well, you just turned 36. You going to tell me now all of a sudden you didn't re-educate yourself. You're just going to blame the public school system. Oh, my God. She'd be shocked to know how many people came out of the public school system and are leaders of industry. She'd be shocked.
Effort to, just like you would say now, in terms of people that are intentionally attacking Anglo-Saxons. I'm just learning about that there were these books that were written to do much genocide, the Anglo-Saxons, that were going on for a lot longer than I realized.
Oh,
history didn't begin with World War II, but I think it would take a lot of time to kind of unpack that.
Yeah. Why is she so soft-spoken now?
People from getting ahead just because
That just sounds, I mean, being honest with you, that just sounds to me like a left-wing argument when they say, why don't these countries get ahead? Colonialism, you're a colonizer. It's like, okay, but when we got there, they had no development.
Sir, how is that left wing when your man literally sat up there and campaigned on annexing Greenland and Canada and Mexico? But you want to say that's left wing, so you're admitting that Trump is a Democrat still? He's just a conservative and a Republican in name only? So Trump is a rhino. Huh.
When we got to Africa, they had no technological development.
So you
No
think
point in
that
history.
even if we weren't at war, and sure, you could say that you think that's a leftist argument. I really push back on that because I've learned so much about just like recent history that I didn't know. But you think that the Middle East, like if we had done nothing in terms of the Middle East, that they would just be savages and just be like, America didn't do anything to he doesn't set anything backwards, they're just like bombing a place.
Yeah, kind of. I think that we did set them back because when they don't have political order, it prevents development and investment and things like that. But, again, when you look at the antecedents of all these, history didn't start, like you said, with World War II in the 20th century. There's a reason that European civilization created this enormous gap between them and everybody else. And
What gap?
I think it was white supremacy, or it was.
Dude, y'all literally took what you learned from the Moors, sir. What are you talking about? Maybe Nick needs to go read them books and see how developed Europe was in the 1500s. I know, he thinks King Arthur was real. That's what it is. The Knights of the Round Table were real. Dragons were real. Okay.
Unfair or something like that. I think it's because Europeans are smarter. I think that on average Europeans
So to
are
use
smarter.
your argument against you, that could be said about Ashkenazis. So if you're sitting here saying, I believe in some conspiracy and that it's a coordinated effort and blah, 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 they could look at you and say, that's a leftist argument. We're just smarter.
I mean, they are smart.
They are smart.
How are
They're the
Europeans
smartest.
smart?
Well, I would say this. I would say they're probably as smart as the smartest white race. But the difference between the Jews and the white people
Here we go.
is that they work as a team. And so if you look at, for example, things like transportation, white people invented every mode of transportation.
I'm not even gonna go there with that. Not even gonna go there. Go ahead.
Railroad, cars, airplanes, all of it. When you look at fields of knowledge, white people invented all that. Chemistry, anthropology, all that stuff.
The reason why I'm streaming was because of a black woman. The reason why you have all these video game systems in your house is because of a black man. The reason why a lot of these old white people and black people and Asians and Hispanics are still alive because of a black man. Even conservatives are starting to run around talking about Henrietta Lacks and her cells. Yeah. A lot of your modern appliances came off patents of black people, but Nick ain't gonna go on the patent office and look that stuff up. But okay. Okay. You got it, Nick. Go ahead.
So white people really did give birth to the modern world in a major way. Jewish people are high verbal IQ because they're lawyers, they're rabbis. That's what a rabbi is a lawyer. That's what the Talmud is.
What about the rappers? Never mind. We keep going.
It's a lawyerly back and forth. And so they're skilled at some things, and you're not wrong. They're extremely educated, they're extremely intelligent. They're a unique case where, 2% of the population, overrepresented 2,000%. Are they 2,000% smarter? The answer is no. Because if you look at the standardized testing, the top scores in the high school standardized testing, almost all Asians in math and science. Asians aren't overrepresented in power.
Oh, yeah. We know why they're not overrepresented in power. Because their parents tell them not to go into politics. That's why. They tell them to go be doctors, lawyers, and engineers. Yes. And these are the same Asians you want to tell us that are so smart when it comes to these tests. They didn't figure out that if you got rid of affirmative action, it would screw them up. Now they're doing all that testing and getting all them high marks for nothing. All that extracurricular, all those perfect SAT scores, all those perfect ACT scores, all those perfect grades in school, unweighted averages over 4, and they can't get into a school. Ain't that something? Doesn't seem very smart to me. Test taking robots. People don't respect them.
It's Jewish people. So Jewish people are not, proportionally as more intelligent as they are more overrepresented, and that goes to their real superpower, which is they're an organized minority. An organized minority will beat a disorganized majority. As far as Africa is concerned, they didn't have the wheel. We got there, they didn't have the wheel, and it's unfortunate. It's not anything that people are happy about. I don't believe that makes Africans inferior, but I do think that.
Dude, you literally called him inferior before.
That was another reason why she didn't put this on YouTube, because they would have equated her to having more Jew hate again, because they had this man on there and what he just said. Okay, all right.
That explains their relative level of development that has been persistent over centuries, millennia.
Yeah, I'd probably just disagree with that point altogether. Okay, so you at least you are agreeing that Jewish people are just born smarter.
Yeah, they're very high IQ. I don't know if they're smarter than white people, but they're.
Oh, here we go.
That's what some results say.
By the way, most Jewish people already identify as white, but of course Nick won't talk about that. Let's
fine. Since you say they're smarter than white people, let's take the Jewish people out of the numbers for IQ for white people. I want to see how much it craters. That I want to see. Since we're gonna go there.
Depends on what results you're looking at.
Okay, I thought that was kind of the. Maybe I'm just reading it in one term, but I'm pretty sure that I read somewhere that Ashkenazis have the highest IQs.
They like to embellish that, and there's different kinds of IQ. I think Chinese people probably have the highest IQ. Chinese or Japanese.
But how do you pick?
What the hell?
What you believe and don't
What?
believe, and then.
Why? Because they're in school 6 days a week? That's why you think Japanese people are smarter? Oh man, by your logic, then the people that just go to college and get a degree, they're infinitely smarter than most people, right? Okay, got it.
Form a basis, I definitely believe that black people are dumb, but I totally don't necessarily believe. I'm obviously being a little bit hyperbolic here. But I totally don't necessarily believe that Ashkenazis are the smartest. How do you?
Well, I said they're probably among the smartest races. As to who's the smartest,
how is sir? How is Jewish a race? Oh my Lord. Frog face idiots. This is who you follow. He really thinks Jewish is a race. Damn. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I was led to believe Nick Fuentes is one of the smartest people of Gen Z, and I'm listening to him, and I don't see it. He really just said Jewish is a race. Okay.
people do embellish that for obvious reasons. Now, there are some studies that say that Ashkenazi Jews do have the highest average IQ, and that does exist.
Yeah, but so then for me, the reason why
But you said they're manipulating everything.
Is because I'm skeptical of history, full stop.
He can't even keep his lies straight.
All of history, or?
Skeptical of history full stop, because we're living in a present right now, we're lying about what happened yesterday, and then when I realized, like, when you completely remove something that would obviously inform our perspectives in a different way, as I covered on my show this week, like the Havara agreement between the Zionists and the Nazis, like that's kind of a pretty big thing to not teach people in school. That would maybe inform and make us ask some questions. When you totally remove like a German genocide and only focus on one genocide, or don't focus on speaking about the Bolshevik Revolution, I don't question. I now have a lot of questions about history, full stop. And so he who prints the textbook is king. And so if you are coming up with a concept like, well, this is an immutable trait, and I know because I read
By the way, that didn't work out for Bethany Mandel. She printed the book and couldn't tell you what woke is. But I think we got all we needed. Before we get up out of here, because we've been here for about 3 hours, Nick said something that I think y'all need to listen to. This is after the interview. Let's see how he thought it went.
It's like all these people, all these fucking people, and by the way, black people, I mean, turning point people, conservatives, I think honestly a lot of them are dumb, and all they know how to do is just the fucking talking points.
Ooh.
I'm trying to give her a real critique here. I said, look, we're in the middle of a war. Talking about issues. You want to talk about text messages? This isn't good stuff. She goes, oh, you're playing a victim. Oh, all you do is complain and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, if you just had even the slightest amount of humility, you would understand what I'm saying. If you had the slightest amount of humility or empathy or anything like that, and weren't so full of yourself and entitled, you would kind of get where I'm coming from here. But you're incapable of that, obviously. And it was even true in the debate. In the debate, we're talking about interracial marriages. And I said, can you understand why someone would value their race? And she goes, no, because I'm in an interracial marriage. I'm like, yeah, I know that. But can you step outside of yourself and see it from another person's perspective? No. And it was borderline, it was like a combination of total stuck-up bitch, but also a combination of I did eat breakfast this morning. It's like literally the worst of both worlds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Remember when I said earlier, just like Tommy Sotomayor, when he went in that X space, she sat there and got insulted within 20 minutes and still stood there and let that man talk.
The worst of conceited, passive-aggressive bitch but I did eat dinner last night come together for just like the most obtuse, unpleasant, rude experience that I've ever had. So I'm done with her. And listen, I'm not going to trash her forever. I'm not going to be dick riding her forever.
Pause. And if you know, you know.
She is criticizing Israel, and she has red-pilled a lot of people. It is a big deal that she's saying what she's saying. I'm not a hater. I'm not that guy. But my experience with her for the past year has been nothing but unpleasant and annoying and a nuisance.
And again, he just proved the grift. He just wanted to get access to another audience. And he's low-key upset because she put it behind a paywall so everybody wouldn't have been able to see it.
I don't think she's a good faith person. I don't think she's an honest person. I think she's
You just figured this out.
I think she's a bitch. I think she's a hypocrite.
You just figured this out.
Make him a sandwich. That's her book. Make him a sandwich. And then she's a fucking bitch. You can't make him a sandwich. I'm not going to take my husband's last name, and I'm going to be wagging my finger and telling everybody what to do.
Why would she take her husband's last name if she's a brand? I'm telling you, the boy is not intelligent. He's not intelligent. Oh my Lord. If it's not conducive to your brand, you don't do it. I swear to Christ.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Nobody needs that. So, it's disappointing. I thought she was different. Honest to God, I don't say that to be, because I'm not passive aggressive.
You thought she was different because you didn't vet. That's why you thought she was different. Even though you were seeing what she was typing. But because she was going at Israel, you let it slide. She lied to your face in that interview. But you let it slide. Now you're getting on your show. Now you want to... Where was this energy when you were in front of her? You were real docile.
I really thought maybe I was going to meet a human being. Maybe I was going to shake hands and say, oh, you're really warm and you're really nice. You're actually a relatable person. Nope. Totally affected, totally self-interested.
You just figured this out.
Slow. slow and obtuse. And I think you could tell that even during the race debate. It's like, I don't know, I feel like I'm talking to an idiot. I told her they have no written language in sub-Saharan Africa when the Europeans penetrated the interior of Africa.
What are you talking about? Okay, Nick.
She goes, what about Egypt? I saw that news. I was like, holy, I'm like, where am I? Did I just get out of a time machine? Was my flight to Nashville a time machine? Did I fly through not only space, but also time?
He's dumb.
When I hit the elevator in my hotel, was it the elevator from SpongeBob and I crash landed in 2019? Where we're debating about race and IQ? And I thought she was red pilled on that. Obviously, she's still nogged up. Obviously, she is still very nogged up. Because I'm telling her, I'm like, yeah, like there's intrinsic difference.
Dude, there's literal, like, I tell you, the boy not smart. Like, literal. There was literal written languages. He really thinks English is just the only language that was written. It's like, I swear. I swear the boy not... And then he got that dumbass look on his face like he intelligent. Like he's saying something.
Differences between the races. And she goes, what about Egypt? We was kings. And then I go, Candace, Egypt is in northern Africa. Black people come from sub-Saharan Africa.
There were black people in northern Africa, you idiot. Jesus Christ.
She goes, well, you said Africa. So okay. Yeah, thank you, sweetie. Then it goes into, well, the Clinton Foundation. Well, they was colonizers. Then it goes into history. History is all fake and shit. We can't trust any of that history. All that shit is fake, man. Them Rothschilds, them Illuminati. That history is all fake and shit. And I'm like making fun of her to her face. I'm like, oh, like Tartaria. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, like Tartaria. She goes, I thinks that all that history is fake. Then it goes into, Then it goes into the reason that white people are more advanced is because we're evil. Get a load of this. Then it goes into, she says, well, maybe the black people aren't willing to do the things that white people are willing to do. Because they're so moral, because there are moral betters. St. Floyd, if you can hear...
Now he's bringing up George Floyd. Black people have... Y'all literally bring up the fact that black people in Africa sold black people. Was that not evil? Was that not them willing to do something that white people would do? Because you even said in there that white people slaved white people. Well, Candace brought that up. You didn't say that never happened. So you were cool with that. The boy's not intelligent, but okay.
Pray for me. St. Floyd of Minneapolis, if you can hear me, pray for me. For the crackheads.
Like you.
We prayed to George Floyd. So, yeah. I got all up in...
He just admitted that he was a crackhead. Okay. Yeah, that was it. There you go. That's y'all's Candace Owens. That's y'all's Nick Fuentes. Idiot Central Station. Anyway, I know this was we'll just say, I know this was a very broad live, very long one, pause. But you got it. Hopefully you learned something. If you did, I done my job. If not, I'll try to be better next time. That was a slog to get through, but we got through it nonetheless. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day. Y'all be productive out there. Stay cool. Y'all take care, stay safe, and you know what to do when the agents of chaos come to mess up with your existence.